This position is completely clear to me. Okay, let's talk about Mr. Zelensky. Of course, we don't have any dictators in Ukraine.
Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell. We are live streaming on YouTube and also simulcasting on X Spaces. For the ones that are watching on YouTube, if you have a question, please join X Spaces. Just ask for the mic and you can give me your opinion about the news that we're covering, or you might have a particular question about the news and you want my perspective on it, whatever. This is interactive, so please join the discussion. Please help support my work in these live streams that I do daily by going to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and donating. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or buy me a coffee on my homepage at the very bottom. I publish thousands of videos for free about international policy, about domestic policy, finance and economics, certain trading strategies, health and wellness, and scientific endeavors. So I cover a lot. Please help support my work. I don't put anything behind a paywall. So please help support these free videos by donating, and better yet, making sure that you are subscribing to all the channels. I just received last night, my live stream last night received a strike. So watch episode 35. You can watch it on Rumble, Bitchute, or Brighteon. Now, make sure you subscribe to all the channels. I have 4 channels on YouTube: Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. All the links are in the description of this video. Because of these strikes, I have to do whack-a-mole all the time to be able to do live streams, or to republish the recordings. So there's censorship and limiting of reach of my content on YouTube. So that's why it's so important to also watch the streams on Rumble and watch the repeats on Rumble, Bitchute, and Brighteon. It's through your help that I'll be able to reach a large audience. Also, whenever I publish on YouTube, YouTube reduces the subscribers. All right, I'm not the only one that this happens to. But the thing is that I need you to make sure that you're subscribed and that you're getting the notification. And if you ask your social media to please follow me, I greatly appreciate it, to get around this censorship by YouTube and this censorship of not just of freedom of speech, but of freedom of reach. So please help. I greatly appreciate it. So with that said, let's go to, I want to go to one of the videos here, talking about the Trump assassin that appears in federal court. This was on Fox News. Let's take a look at this.
A live look, meanwhile, at Florida, where would-be assassin Ryan Routh was just in court for his alleged attempt on President Trump's life. Routh was apprehended at the Trump National Golf Course, you'll remember, in West Palm Beach, where officials say he was waiting for the then presidential candidate with a rifle. For more on this, let's bring in Jonathan Turley, a Fox News contributor and constitutional law professor. What do we need to know about all this? Jonathan, welcome.
Well, this is a curious defense case because the defense has not been forthcoming with evidence and positions on their side. The most notable thing is that Routh has not indicated through counsel that he is going to invoke any type of insanity defense. That's a long delay in raising such a defense. You just can't throw that out just before trial. You have to lay the groundwork with the court. Part of the problem may be that he makes a weak case on the facts for an insanity defense because he was functionally there at the scene. He decided to flee, indicating he knew that he was doing something wrong and that he was at risk of being apprehended. He was there for a month in the area. There seems to be a lot of planning that went into it. All of those things cut against the insanity defense. And then many of these charges are pretty straightforward, whether he had these weapons, whether he assaulted a Secret Service agent. Those are things that give you much less room for a defense.
So President Trump was asked about this by our Peter Ducey in the Oval Office, why don't we know more information, not just about Routh, but about the Butler shooter as well. Here's what the president said in response to the question about Routh. Listen here.
That's a lot of cell phones. And a couple of them had some strange markings on them. So, yeah, I want to find out, and I would be willing to release it. I mean, maybe there's a reason that we shouldn't, so I don't want to get too far ahead of my skis, but yeah, I would be very willing to release that.
So what he was referring to there was the evidence that the FBI has in its possession, including 3,000 photos, 18 phones in total. The president said, I don't have that many phones. Why would he have that many phones? 5 storage disks, 3 computers, 3 tablets. You would think, Professor, there could potentially be a treasure trove of information about what led up to this that's on those devices, yet we haven't heard much.
Right, this is not like past assassins. You know, you put them in sort of groups of past assassins or attempted assassins of presidents. Many of them are coming directly from the United States. They're sometimes unbalanced, like Squeaky Fromme and others that are coming from sort of cult-like situations. This one has a lot of international ties in the sense that he was over in Ukraine. He sort of fashioned himself as sort of a global player in this. He wrote about his desire to see Trump killed by Iran. All of that raises obvious flags for the FBI that this is just not a Hinckley that goes after Ronald Reagan because of a delusion with a movie star. This guy seems to have a sort of global identity and awareness to him that is always going to concern American intelligence.
You know, the president suggested that he's going to release a report on these 2 assassination attempts for the American public to see soon. What do you expect from that?
You know, one of the most interesting aspects of the developing legacy of President Trump has been the transparency aspects. I think the media has begrudgingly acknowledged that they went from a president who often had literally a line of staff preventing media from getting close to him. Rarely ever doing a sit-down interview, certainly not with a neutral media outlet. This president is all in. I mean, it's almost total access, total transparency. They've done that with Doge. They've done that in a lot of other respects. And he is fulfilling that aspect, which I find fascinating because every president, like Obama, came in saying, I'm going to be the most transparent ever. And it didn't exactly work out.
So let me ask you about this, because I know that this is something that interests you greatly. You actually wrote about it. And this was the censure of Congressman Al Green yesterday, in which the disruption that occurred Tuesday night at the joint address continued during his censure. And that was when a lot of Democrats joined him in the well of the House, and they were singing, "We Shall Overcome," while he was being censured. Let's listen to part of the scene here.
And that Representative Al Green be censured with public reading of this resolution by the Speaker. The House will come to order. The House will come to order.
Well, despite the disturbance, the Speaker insists that the censure did go through. You say that 80% of the public opposed what Green did on Tuesday night, yet only 5% of Democrats voted for that censure.
Right. This disconnect is glaring. And the question is, what is the leadership doing here? They're turning this into a parody rather than a party. You have these people who respond to a censure for disrupting the House by disrupting the House with a protest in the well. A protest in favor of conduct that the vast majority of Americans really find disgraceful. And so they have cut themselves adrift, and they're no longer connected, I think, to the majority of this country. This is the problem when you have your party being directed by the most extreme 25% of the party. You have moments like this one. But I got to tell you, I find this really and terribly depressing. You know, I went to that house when I was a 15-year-old page, and I revered it. I revered the people in it on both parties. And when I was a page, this would have been a unanimous vote. There were things you couldn't do, things beyond the pale, things that went beyond the rage, that you look to the institution and to each other to maintain.
And this is what the reason why is because our ethics have devolved. We have lost the concept of God, country, and family. And when you lose those 3 pillars, you start to see stuff like this. You start to see society coming apart. you start to justify that it's okay to steal on the street. It's okay to have illegal aliens running around causing crime. It's okay to have BLM movements burning down your town. It goes back to the root cause, God, country, and family. If you do not have an affinity to those three pillars, you will have a society that starts to collapse, and you see it, you're seeing it right now. And a big part of it is ultra liberals fucking up the system. And a big part of it is these minorities, because of the DEI, the woke, and CRT, that have devolved society.
A dangerous distance from that point.
Jonathan Turley, always a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us.
All right, so now, thank you for joining, everybody. We're live streaming on Rumble, and we are doing a simulcast on X Spaces. If you would like to do a call-in, please do. Please help support my work by going to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the great soaps that I have. You can get it in lemongrass or in charcoal tea tree. It's made from structural nanosilver. I have it in the older packaging, and then the newer packaging, which is the same high quality soaps, is that you can get it in peppermint, and you can also get it in lavender. Very high quality, again, made from structural nanosilver. These soaps are high quality, doesn't have the fancy chemicals in it. I use this, get a few bars for your household, help support my work, and do these live streams and help support your health and wellness. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. So I'm gonna paste the link to the X Spaces if you would like to join in. Let's go to Cash Jordan to see how crazy our border is.
In month into President Trump's term, some border agents say his executive order on immigration appears to be working. Thousands of migrants are even giving up mid-journey. They're already on their way, and then they're going back home. What does that tell you?
You know, it tells me that as troops flood the U.S. border, something that nobody thought would ever take place is actually happening. America is now seeing reverse migration as the people we were told fled poverty and depression without a country to return to are now voluntarily turning around and returning to those very same places. And if all it took were a handful of the world's best trained troops to secure our border, that can only mean it's been kept open all of these years on purpose.
But now the Pentagon is sending up to 3,000 more troops.
Wow. That's not a revelation. The Biden administration wanted this to happen. They wanted to have this inflow of illegal aliens. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Max 35 or the Max 14. Take it every day. Take a teaspoon a day, swish it in your mouth, gargle, 30 seconds or so, swallow. It'll help with your immune system. It's the first pillar of my core protocol. The first pillar deals with boosting up your immune system with the Max 35 or Max 14. Take it every day. If you're not feeling well, take a tablespoon or 2 a day. C60 to soak up free radicals, which is the second pillar. The third pillar is to bring down inflammation and boost up your immune system with turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans. And then the fourth pillar of the core protocol is to take Boomer Boost, boost up your energy levels and your metabolism. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Max 14 or the Max 35. Take it every day.
To the southern border, the military might coming as the White House pressures Mexico to ramp up its security efforts on the other side of the wall.
For the first time ever, media was able to get access to a specialized operations group within Border Patrol. It is an elite unit where they work specifically to target the worst of the worst, while also working to save lives.
Cartel operatives have reportedly had to move labs to other parts of the country or temporarily stop production. Other cartel members are becoming more afraid of being arrested. One person telling the New York Times, "You can't be calm, you can't even sleep."
Defiant immigration activists are now trying all they can
to stop ICE agents. They've been showing up to raids with megaphones and cameras, and now they're trying to dox agents across the Los Angeles area.
The left has lost their mind. It's all of a sudden the ones who enforce the law, the bad guys, and one who break the law, the victim. I'll say it again. We are prioritizing public safety threats. These are the worst of the worst walking around your community.
So as the greatest army in the world begins securing its own nation's border, nobody is shocked at the result. Nobody except the two groups who benefited the most from America's open border and never wanted it to close. And that would be gang members and progressive politicians, both of whom have benefited immensely from what has been described as an epidemic of modern slavery, masquerading as a humanitarian crisis where dangerous gangs and cartels get rich trafficking people into America who go on to benefit corrupt political interests, who use them as pawns in a scheme to defraud our country while riling up voters against who they say is an evil president that hates immigrants but is somehow married to one. And with the U.S. border seeing the lowest levels of immigration since Eisenhower was president, America's enemies are doing everything they can to reverse this new trend, while desperately trying to continue business as usual with the cartels changing their smuggling tactics in an attempt to sneak their indentured prisoners into the country, where in sanctuary cities like New York, backwards local laws continue opening up new asylum shelters as our progressive leaders take credit for resisting President Trump. Which brings us to the real reason securing the border is so important. Not doing it just allows the enemies of America to continue destroying it while vulnerable people continue to be trafficked and exploited. Which doesn't just happen in sanctuary cities that harbor gang members and criminals. Oh no, this exploitation, which operates on an industrial scale, starts the second these gangs cross our border.
Look at this video we wrote along with the Pinal County Sheriff's Office. They were specifically targeting minibuses and small vans. One man that they got off one of those vans said he paid $8,000 to get smuggled into the country.
$8,000. That's what smugglers in generic-looking vans earn carting people around our country. People who in many cases wind up in sanctuary cities where they're held out as victims to fuel America's hostile progressive power base, which secretly has no plans to personally employ or house the very people stuck in the humanitarian disaster it's created. And that disaster has empowered and enriched gangs and criminals who are now too strong for even the Mexican government to deal with. And as you're about to see, the U.S. military could soon find itself inside Mexico, tracking them down.
Those troopers will be joining the already 9,000. Listen, paying $14.99 a month for a streaming app and $9.99 a month for a music app and $12.99 for a fitness app, and will be joining the already 9,200 troops here on the border that have been deployed under President Trump since he has taken office. Those troopers will be included from the 4th Infantry Division and 2nd Stryker Brigade, and will focus on sealing key points along the southern border. These troopers will also be equipped with 20-ton Stryker combat vehicles. And these
Okay, so over 12,000 troops are at the border, and these are not just any troops. They're ready for what looks like a counterinsurgency mission, driving around in these mobile Stryker infantry carrier vehicles, which have machine guns and 40mm grenade launchers. Now, it's important to understand these vehicles aren't tanks. They're fast, personnel-carrying offensive weapons, which will help our troops rapidly respond to any threat along any part of the border as soon as it arises. And if you think that's overkill, just look at who these vehicles and these troops are at the border to stop.
Cartel operatives have reportedly had to move labs to other parts of the country or temporarily stop production. Other cartel members are becoming more afraid of being arrested. One person telling the New York Times, "You can't be calm, you can't even sleep because you..."
Okay, do we really want the guys that we just saw on the news right here to be sleeping peacefully at night with all of their weapons and all of their evil plans? Of course not. But these people have been sleeping soundly and making piles of money for decades, and nothing's been done about it. That's how they were able to afford all of this military-grade equipment you see them carrying. And they aren't using all of those weapons to care for the immigrants that they are helping bring into the country, that's for sure. Their weapons, their ordnance, all of that is used to enslave and indenture these people, and this has been going on for so long that these groups are now so powerful, there's very little the Mexican government can do to stop them.
Then these additional forces and troops will be primarily stationed on the Arizona border. This move comes as Hexa is warning Mexican officials that failure to curb collusion between the country's government and cartels could result in the U.S. military taking action, according to the Wall Street Journal.
So the reason our military is headed to the border is because there's another military down there already, a military which is in collusion in many ways with the Mexican government itself. And this alleged collusion with a foreign government makes this look like a hostile state-sponsored force. And even though I've got nothing against Mexico, it's hard to see them as our friend or our border partner when they're postured up like this and have been for quite some time. And to Mexico's credit, they are starting to do things like put troops along the border to help secure it every time the topic of tariffs comes up. But apparently the 10,000 troops they did send to the border last month haven't been enough, which is why our troops could soon be sent into Mexico to combat these cartels with the help of special forces.
The U.S. is also relying on an elite tactical unit for targeted operation, News Nation gaining exclusive access to Border Patrol's elite force trained to track and capture high-risk cartel operatives, also known as BORTAC.
So these elite troops storming houses, that's what's going to start happening in Mexico, if need be, to get these cartel members and to stop them from running their operations. And it's important to remember that the victims of these cartels, they're women, children, and other individuals who are essentially being used as money mules. These individuals are being sent across to America by these cartels. They report being kidnapped. They report being photographed and monitored by these gang members. It's a sophisticated operation. And the reason that's done is to make sure that anybody that is in the care of the cartel pays their bills after they get across the border. They know exactly who these people are. And if they do end up making their way to a sanctuary city like New York, if they didn't have the money to pay when they crossed, you better believe that some awful job or 2 or 3 awful jobs will be found for these people to illegally work to pay off what they owe these gang members. These are traffickers they caught in the United States.
So forth. If you bring them back to my car, we can start getting their shoelaces and all that off. So he costs. How much did he pay a month ago when he crossed? 8,000 for him. Okay, he came across for free.
Okay, this guy right here in the white hoodie. This is one of the traffickers because he came across for free, and his friend here in the black jacket, this guy paid $8,000 to get across the border. That's insane. And then as police go through their stuff, these wrapped up bags, there's actually money in here. They found $100,000 in this generic looking white van. And the scary thing about this is that the guy who came in for free, he didn't just come in because he wants to live in America and pursue the American dream. No, he came in to monitor the person that he's trafficking and all the money that they've got. He's part of a business operation. He probably crosses the border multiple times a month. And when we think of these Mexican cartels, we think of a heavily armed operation, yes, but one that stays predominantly in Mexico. But here you've got people that are apprehended in America who are part of these organizations. We don't want people like this in our country. What they're doing here is wholly incompatible with American values. They're exploiting people and they're tracking them and they're enslaving them in this criminal underworld that lurks beneath the surface of what people see every day when they live their lives here. And this is why workplace enforcement type raids are so important. That's where many victims of these cartels are discovered, working away for years to pay off what they owe. These people don't have a choice. Their lives are on the line if they don't pay their bills. And the employers that are taking these people, they're doing it to save money. So they get exploited again because they don't benefit from any of the workplace protections we have in this country. And when you see how easily these cartels have been able to get people into the country, your head is going to spin.
Attempting to use a ladder. That one had hooks on the top. That
Look,
was to get
he's
up
got a
over the
ladder.
wall.
This
But their
guy's just
strategy was
walking
no
towards
match
the
for the
wall with a
manpower on the
ladder.
ground and in the air. And the show of force really seems to be working too, because those numbers there, the 2,700 in a single day down to about 60. And Border Patrol says that migrants are actually turning back on their own because there's such a deterrence on the U.S. side. But that also means the cartel isn't making its money.
These guys were using medieval technology to scale walls, and they've been making $13 billion a year with ladders. That's how easy this has been for them. But you heard it right here. People are starting to turn around. They're realizing, hey, it's not a good idea to put myself in the hands of criminals if those criminals are just going to get stopped and apprehended before they even take my entire life savings and get me into the country. And this new trend of people turning around and heading home, this goes completely against what we've been told about our border and about this crisis from the very beginning. We've been told that people are fleeing extreme poverty and war zones and all kinds of things that are terrible, but a little bit of increased border security is enough to have them say, well, you know, we'll just head home. That shows that there's something else going on here. Perhaps people that have $8,000 to turn over to cartel members that might not even be worth anything if they get caught aren't as bad off as we've been told. This chart right here shows how the Venezuelan crime rate has just absolutely plummeted because apparently many criminals are coming to America now. They're coming here because it's more profitable to be a criminal in this country than it is in the country they were from. So they're doing it for economic reasons. And as you're about to see, the worst part about all of this is that it's all been entirely preventable.
Yeah, so what's interesting, let's show you here where the wall ends. This is what's been exploited by the criminal cartel for years now. People were quite literally running right through this gap and right in front of our cameras. But as you can see, there's this vehicle barrier all the way up this ridge. Chris, let's go up this hill here and show them. So this is to stop vehicles, ATVs, any kind of SUV, you know, motorcycle, any.
This is crazy. Look at how much open space there is right there. Anybody could just go right around the wall and literally just get into the country. That's insane. And then after people get into the country, the way the rules used to work was that they would get paroled and be able to stay here and then decide if they're going to apply for asylum or to figure out some legal pathway to potentially remaining in America. But as it turns out, this parole loophole, which affects 500,000 people, might soon be closed. Roughly 530,000 migrants entered the U.S. under the Biden administration program that allowed foreign nationals with sponsors living in the country to work and stay here for up to 2 years. Apparently, hundreds of people in this sponsorship program all used the same physical address as if they were flying here and had a sponsor who was at the same location as the sponsor for 99 other people. And that reveals an underbelly to this crisis that is very, very disturbing because people without a sponsor, they were able to get one somehow, and they were the same sponsor that sponsored hundreds of others. This entire crisis has just been a front for the worst criminals on our planet to make money off others, while the politicians defending open borders act like none of this is going on. In fact, they say it's wrong for any type of crackdown on these criminal organizations to take place. And they're now taking matters into their own hands to stand up to and stop ICE.
These posters that you're looking at on your screen right now have been spotted in several neighborhoods. Now, they contain photos, names, and phone numbers of ICE agents. These pathetic activists are putting targets on the backs of our law enforcement as they shield MS-13, Tren de Aragua, and other vicious gangs that traffic women.
You've got to be in denial of reality to support this type of activism. I mean, these are the worst of the worst criminals, and they're all over the place, and they're working against the interests of the very people that these activists claim to truly care about. And that's what's so shocking about this whole debate on illegal immigration. You've got people who somehow believe that folks paying $8,000 ransoms to thugs driving vans are so poverty-stricken they don't have any money whatsoever and have nowhere to live other than in a New York City asylum shelter. And while many of these same individuals are returning to countries that are now safer than they were just a few years ago, you've got people in America who have no idea what's going on, but they hate President Trump so much that they have accepted the premise that we as a country are doing something immoral by turning these people around and sending them into the clutches of gang members and criminals when that's exactly where they are right now in America.
I got a security detail. The left has lost their mind. It's all of a sudden the ones who enforce the law, the bad guys, the ones who break the law, the victims. We're not going to slow us down. We're not going to be bullied. We're not going to be intimidated. What we're going to do in these cities, we'll double the manpower. We'll flood those neighborhoods with DEA, ATF, FBI, ICE.
So we've got a political party in this country now which has decided that everything good is evil and everything evil is good. That's extremely dangerous. And these are people who are now advocating actively on behalf of criminals, not just the cartels who enslave people, but also the gangs like Tren de Aragua from Venezuela, who are prevalent in many sanctuary cities and prey upon and hurt the very immigrant communities these politicians say they exist to advocate for. But there's no advocacy for the working class neighborhoods in New York City flooded with gang members. And there's no advocacy for the people trapped working dead-end jobs, 2 or maybe even 3 of them, to pay back massive debts to these cartels and gang members. They're essentially being enslaved to support criminal enterprises. What do you think about this? Are troops at the border a good thing? Are these ICE crackdowns going to make everybody safer? Or are the activists right? Is this a bad thing for America? Should we reopen the border? Let me know. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.
Well, this is what happens when you have an administration that allows this to happen, aka the Biden administration. please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Help support these live streams that I do by purchasing the products on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5 on any order, you get $5 off. I've partnered up with Rainbow Herbals, and we have developed these deodorants that are dual purpose. These deodorants that I'm showing you are for males and females. You use it as a deodorant, but it also will help to detoxify your body. Why? Because they're made from essential oils from the Himalayas, extremely high quality ingredients. No aluminum, no baking soda in these deodorant bars. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the peppermint, lavender, and tea tree, or the citrus version. Very high quality deodorants, help support Rainbow Herbals and help support my work by going to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get a couple bars for your household. Again, this will help to detoxify your body, and you use it as a deodorant daily. And by improving your health and wellness, you're also supporting the program. Thank you. I greatly appreciate your patronage. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5. All right. What I want to do is go to another video here. All right. Trump's chaos had woken up sleepy Europe. General Richard says. Okay, so this is Times Radio.
President Trump has at last woken up our political leaders to do what people like me did try to get them to do a lot earlier.
Let's go now straight to Lord Richards, David Richards, the former Chief of the Defence Staff, the head of the British Armed Forces. Hello to you.
Good morning, Adam.
So I want to ask you your assessment of the military situation currently in Ukraine. Is it sustainable for Ukraine to fight on?
No, I never thought, sadly, as much as like most people, emotionally, I was with them 150%, that tactically and strategically they were going to win, if you like, although none of our politicians nor the Ukrainians actually have a defined victory, which doesn't help in terms of planning a military campaign. But I think they had an opportunity in the first year, towards the end of it, to seek a pretty favourable ceasefire, but people like Boris Johnson and many others, including some military men who should have known better, encouraged them to go on fighting. In fact, General Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs in America at that time, said they are at their high water mark, and I'm afraid he was right, and it's been a bit downhill ever since. So I'm absolutely convinced that President Trump is right in principle. We may not like some of his tactics, but right in principle now to try to impose a peace on them and to make it as favourable as possible into the long term for Ukraine.
Because the counter-argument, of course, is that, as you say, in the first year of the war, Russia didn't overwhelm Ukraine, and still, although it occupies about a fifth of the territory of Ukraine, its advances are still pretty slow.
They are, but they're inexorable, and I think it's going to grow, particularly, of course, and this is the big new factor, without American support. And they are in a position right now, as I understand it, tactically, where the cursed salient, as one might call it, that's the Ukrainian annexation of a small part of Russia, is under severe attack from the Russians, obviously intending to get that back before any ceasefire might be agreed. And the situation in the east is not that good either. To give you a feel for it, how much this has bled Ukraine beyond the huge migration out of Ukraine by a lot of people, there are something like 100,000 amputees in Ukraine at the moment, amputees caused by the war. It's just not sustainable when the population balance is so out of kilter between Russia and Ukraine. So it is time to call a halt to this and to make Ukraine's longer-term future as robust as we can all do.
How do you assess the impact of the withdrawal of American support, both in terms of intelligence and military aid?
Well, I mean, I think everyone knows it is absolutely huge. I'll give you another feel because maybe you want to talk about the French-British approach. But back in 2011, when I was CDS and we did the Libya operation, we could not do it without detailed American support and involvement. We just didn't have it. And a lot of that was to do with intelligence and what's known in the trade as sort of enablers, command and control. The same applies now to Ukraine. Without that intelligence feed, allowing them to anticipate Russian attacks and so on, it's very, very difficult. And no one other than the Americans have got it, sadly.
I mean, given Trump's attitude, we probably need it pretty rapidly to develop our own, don't we?
Well, there's a big question. And everyone's talking about, we're going to spend 2.5% of GDP on defense in this country by 2027. I can tell you it would take something like 4% for 10 years to get anywhere near like the capability the Americans have, which is why in this rough old world we're living in, and which great power competition seems to have become back in vogue. Sometimes you better do as your great power ally wants you to do. And in this case, Europe...
Surrender to the Russians, you mean?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily that far, but I think quite clearly what President Trump is saying, and he said it in 2016, and President Eisenhower said it in the 50s, is Europe's got to stop freeloading on America and start investing properly in their own defense. So in that respect, we need to do so quickly and efficiently. But I can tell you, Adam, it'll still take the best part of another 10 years to even begin to replicate what America and NATO does for us.
Got to say, you sound pretty defeatist on all of this. I mean, do you look back on your career when you had a lot of influence as, you didn't do what you should have done?
Well, if you're talking about fighting with my political masters to get more put into defence, like every other chief of defence and head of individual armed forces, and of course this isn't often revealed because you do these things mainly behind closed doors, although I got into a bit of trouble sometimes doing it. We fought very hard, and without that fight, I think things would be even worse. But the fact is, there was a post-Cold War feeling of euphoria. It didn't look like we were going to fight a state-on-state conflict ever again in the eyes. So even though people like me said, oh yes, it's going to come one day, and we weren't listened to. But I'm not exonerating myself. We're all guilty. And President Trump has at last woken up our political leaders to do what people like me did try to get them to do a lot earlier.
But the question is whether he is still our ally, whether he's justified in criticism of European defence spending. If he's not going to support us, if he's talking about claiming territory from Canada, who's a fellow member of NATO, in those circumstances, is it remotely conceivable that France and Britain, with other allies, could go ahead and try and offer some kind of security guarantee to whatever is left of Ukraine after a peace settlement?
Well, there's the Ukraine issue, and then there's the wider, longer-term issue of NATO. On Ukraine, let me be quite blunt, and one or two of your listeners have remarked on this, that there is no way that we, without America, can offer a credible deterrent to any Russian adventurism. The right way to do this is to build up Ukraine's defense. They proved very capable at doing this. As you said earlier, the Russians aren't actually getting a free ride by any means. So we should invest massively in the Ukrainians' defensive capability. And this would involve lots more than just the sort of obvious things like tanks, but the more technical aspects of modern fighting. And then there is a case for NATO countries, European countries, not in their NATO guise, being in Ukraine in a supporting technical logistic role, but not in this so-called peacekeeping role, which I think Ukraine would do much more efficiently without the risk of us being drawn into a fight with Russian forces that we're just not capable of properly responding
I
to.
suppose the point would be that they would be a kind of tripwire, and in that sense a deterrent, because it would say to Russia, if you do move in on what remains of Ukraine, there will be consequences.
Yeah, and Adam, I know what you might be thinking when you ask that, and I'm thinking, yes, what consequences? Because without America's intimate involvement, we have very little to offer in retaliation to the Russians. And I learned two things, a few other things when I was serving, but one of them is if you really want to stay good and strong in defense, stay close to America. And secondly, when you do go into some sort of conflict, make sure you're robust and strong, able to defend yourself and re-establish the initiative. I fear that the latter would not be possible without much bigger allied forces, French, British, and so on, than is currently not only being talked about, but is even possible because, for example, the British Army has got barely one brigade that it can deploy into the field and in any way be counted as sort of able to fight for itself. And the French are no better. So it's a long way off being in a position where we might be able to plausibly deter Russian adventurism.
But are you confident we can continue to, as you put it, stay close to America, that we can continue to rely on America?
Yeah, I may be quite wrong, first of it, I regularly am, but I think the geostrategic reality of America's position will ensure that we and the Americans can stay close. As one, I think Adam Thompson said earlier, the Americans have not said they are leaving NATO. They've worried a lot of them, European politicians. I think there's been a slightly hysterical reaction to that. Play a long game, do what they are after, which we're beginning to do, and I see no reason why history won't out and we'll remain closely aligned with America. Particularly, it's in our interest over time to do as some of your correspondents have been suggesting, and I have for a while too, grand strategically, we want to divide Russia from China. And I know it'll be post-Putin and all the things that we associate with today's Moscow regime, but in due course, Russia isn't going away. She will remain a great power of some kind, and we need to bring her into the body of the curve and then focus with America doing the muscle lifting for us on China.
Lord Richards, David Richards, thank you very much indeed. You're listening to Times Radio.
All right. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the drops and the lozenges. Once you have an irritation, take them right away. Have some of these at your home or at work. You never know when you need them, so it's better to be prepared. You get 100 drops. They're smaller than the lozenges. You get 100 drops in each of these bags. You can get it in cherry, honey and lemon, or blueberry. If you bake for your household, or the larger size are the lozenges. And you can get that in Manuka honey and in elderberry zinc. Very high quality. Get a few bags for your household. Have some at work. Have some at home. You never know when you're going to have that irritant. You want to mitigate it right away. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the lozenges and the drops. The drops are in the new packaging. Same high quality. I actually like the design of this labeling here. But please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the drops and the lozenges. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. Get a few items from my store. Help support your health and wellness and help support these videos that I do for free. Okay, so Now, let's take a look at, I want to take a look at, Live Now did a recording and published it about Russia forces go inside gas pipeline to strike Ukraine.
You want to get into some breaking news that we are following right now coming in on the Russia-Ukraine war. Take a look at this video that's just coming in via Storyful as Russian special forces walked miles inside a gas pipeline to strike Ukrainian units from behind in the Kursk region. Ukraine's military and Russian war bloggers are reporting this here moments ago as Moscow moves to recapture parts of its border province that Kyiv seized in a shock offensive. According to Telegram post by a Ukrainian-born pro-Kremlin blogger, Russian operatives walked about 9 miles inside the pipeline, which Moscow had until recently used to send gas to Europe. Some Russian troops had spent several days in the fight before striking Ukrainian units from behind. Now, all of this here coming as we have learned that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky expected to meet with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia tomorrow, but it appears he will not stick around as Ukrainian and American delegations meet to talk about the war with Russia. This comes after that explosive Oval Office conversation between Zelensky and President Trump 1 week ago. As always, so much to discuss here, so I do want to bring in a guest to help break it down. We have Professor Sir Lawrence Friedman, an emeritus professor of war studies at King's College London. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us and help discuss this a little bit further.
Good to be with you.
All right, so first off, I do want to talk just a little bit here about some information coming in about that meeting between President Zelensky and the Crown Prince in Saudi Arabia. What exactly is the purpose of that meeting overall?
Well, Saudi Arabia now appears to be the location for the talks. The Crown Prince presumably may have some role. And I think President Zelensky is extremely keen to demonstrate that whatever's going on, Ukraine is part of it. So I don't think it's a big move, but I think it's important to him to demonstrate that in any conversation that's going on, Ukraine is there. I think also given that Ukrainian negotiators will be meeting with, I think, National Security Advisor Waltz and Secretary of State Rubio just after that, he wants to be part of sort of preparation for that, but it wouldn't be expected. I don't think that he would be part of the actual negotiation.
And is that significant? I mean, you were just talking about this, but is it significant that Zelensky is not expected to attend the talks between the American delegation and Ukrainian delegation? Is it likely this has something to do with that explosive Oval Office meeting, or could it just be he's not going to be there?
Yeah, I think it's probably more the latter. I mean, possibly it's relevant, but just as when they met with the Russian delegation, Putin wasn't there, you wouldn't particularly expect in an ongoing negotiation, of which potentially there's going to be a number of rounds, that this would be handled by the president himself. So I don't think it's that surprising or significant.
President Trump said on Friday that he's finding it, quote unquote, difficult to work with Ukraine. Can that relationship between the U.S. and Ukraine be fixed? Is it possible to repair that? Again, we keep talking about it, but that's after that big explosive conversation there that happened in the White House Oval Office.
Well, I think the Ukrainians are pretty anxious to fix it because they've had intelligence and military support withdrawn, and this is already causing problems. So it's not a trivial matter for them, and they try to say the right things about the mineral deal, about their desire for a ceasefire and peace and so on. So President Trump has said he's waiting and seeing, and that's why the first round of talks may be extremely important. So it potentially can be repaired. The Ukrainians, I'm pretty sure, want it to be repaired, but it's not clear at the moment what it will take to convince President Trump that this is that enough is being done.
What do Ukrainians overall think of Volodymyr Zelensky as the president there? Is he a popular president? I've spoken to several experts about this, and they've had, varying things to say. But what are your thoughts overall on how he's viewed there in Ukraine by his citizens?
Well, I think Zelensky is viewed as he's done a pretty impressive job as a war leader, as an ambassador for Ukraine, as gathering international support immediately after the full-scale invasion. There are doubts about, as with any political leader, about his performance at home. But I think one of the things to note is that whereas before that Oval Office meeting, his support was in the sort of low 50s amongst Ukrainians. Since then, it's gone up into the mid 60%. As with other countries people don't like, when it seems like another government is trying to tell them who should be their leader. So he's got general support at the moment in Ukraine. He's not in any sense an illegitimate leader.
And I have to ask, because we talk about, the fact that there can't be elections there in Ukraine right now. Can you kind of explain why that is the case?
Well, you've got a country that's at war, or the cities are being regularly bombed, with 20% of it under occupation, with a third of the population displaced or refugees, with large numbers in the armed forces. It would be a pretty difficult task to actually hold a free and fair election in those circumstances. And the Ukrainian constitution doesn't expect it when there's martial law. So it's not that this is some deliberate ploy by Zelensky to hold on to power. It's just a pretty hopeless situation at the moment in which you can hold an election. I think there would be an assumption that once there was a degree of peace, they would move pretty sharply to restore normal democratic forms.
The U.S. has, of course, stopped that.
Before we go on to his next question, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great probiotics that I have. I have it in powdered form, which is the one I prefer to take, or in veggie cap form. Both are very high quality. Getting a good gut biome by taking a good probiotic is really important. You reduce inflammation in your gut. By having a good gut biome, you're improving your immune system, you're improving your gut absorption. The energy levels will go up because your absorption of your foods will be better. The communication between your gut and your liver will be better, and your gut and your brain. Your skin will improve, your hair and your nails will improve. Having a good gut biome has been shown to actually reduce the chances of early onset of dementia or Alzheimer's in some new research that has come out. So it's really important to take a good probiotic. Also, with a good gut biome, you're going to sleep better. You're going to be less irritable. Those are all positive things for your health. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the probiotic either in the powdered form or in the veggie cap form. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off.
And I have to ask, because we are following, as I mentioned, this breaking news that's coming in out of the region right now, as it appears that, Russian troops have walked miles and miles into that pipeline. What are your thoughts about that situation as it does develop? Again, we do have limited information overall, but I want to get your initial thoughts.
Yeah, there is limited information, and it's obviously one has to be pretty careful about speculating too much. There's some other reports from Ukrainian sources that quite a lot of those going through the pipeline were caught and killed. But there's clearly pressure on the Ukrainian position in Kursk. And there's two main battle areas. One is Kursk, but the other is eastern Ukraine. And actually, the Russian offensive in eastern Ukraine has slowed down in recent months. And maybe they're putting a different priority now on Kursk, because if you are moving to ceasefire negotiations, they won't want the Ukrainians controlling any of their territory, whereas they struggle to make the sort of progress they expected in the east.
All right. We do appreciate it, of course, Professor Sir Lawrence Freedman, Emeritus Professor of War Studies there at King's College London. Thank you.
All right. What I want to do is I'm going to pivot over to Lay's real talk about President Xi. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. and get the structural nanosilver toothpaste. This will whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, help with your gum line, reduce inflammation at the gum line. You're going to have healthier oral cavity. Your oral hygiene will be improved. It has no fluoride. It has structural nanosilver in it. And by improving your oral cavity, you're reducing the chances of vascular disease or valvular disease. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the best toothpaste that you can buy. This is it right here. You can't get a better toothpaste. Nobody sells a better toothpaste than I do. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get a few tubes of this toothpaste, help with your oral hygiene, and help with supporting the show that I do. Now, taking a multivitamin is really important because multivitamins and minerals are cofactors for enzymatic activity. This is an easy to digest multivitamin. You should take a multivitamin as part of your daily routine. It's really important. You can take a look at the label on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. You get all the important vitamins to help as a baseline for enzymatic activity, and then add to the multivitamins some of the other products that I'm mentioning throughout this broadcast to build your own stack. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Take this multivitamin to have the proper enzymatic activity that you need for your cells. Because if you don't have the right minerals and vitamins at the right concentrations, your enzymes will not perform as well. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the multivitamin. It's easy to digest. Use discount 5 on any order and you get $5 off. So let's now see what's going on in China.
With the shifting geopolitical landscape since Donald Trump took office and the growing focus on summer-US conflict and trade war 2.0, it's critical to understand who is truly in control of the Chinese regime. Is Xi Jinping running Zhongnanhai, or is he merely a figurehead? If he's not in control, then who is? Since the CCP's third plenum last July, persistent rumors about Xi Jinping's health have circulated. Since then, we've observed Xi's diminishing military authority, his weakening power within the party, and a noticeable shift in state propaganda embellishing his image. Yet she continues to appear as the leader, attending key events and issuing directives. This has led many observers like myself to conclude that despite the setback he suffered last summer, she remains the most powerful political figure in China. However, according to a reputable political commentator's source in Beijing, this is nothing more than a carefully crafted illusion. On February 23rd, Mr. Cai Shengkun, who is a reliable source for disclosure of China CCP politics, Mr. Cai stated in his YouTube channel that he received a call from a close friend in China the day before.
第一时间呢，我听到这个消息呢，我就感觉到呢，是海外自媒体一直已经炒作了很久的这个消息。对。但是呢，我这个朋友呢，首先呢，他是过去是一个很严谨的人，也是一个很理性的人。长期呢在体制里面，而不是在体制外面，而且呢是跟级别比较高的这个官员呢做秘书。 后来呢，又一直呢在经济领域呢，从事专业的经济工作。所以说这样的一个人呢，从来他没。我们现在这个人可以说是决定了14亿人的命运，也决定了整个。
In China, and maintains close connections with past and currently did most of the talking, and he listened.
是的，这样的一种变化，怎么不重要呢
？This friend did most of the talking, and he listened. This friend, he said, in Beijing has a certain level of influence in China and maintains close connections with past and current leaders and are especially close with the families of former leaders.
到了三中全会呢，说是呢，党内的这些高层一致认为再让习近平这么折腾下去呢，大家可能都是死无葬身之地。
I'm tired of listening to the Chinese. I wish you would just do this in English. Forget it. All right. We're an American show. Sorry. All right. Let's go to Scott, Sky News, talking about Meghan's Netflix. Meghan Markle.
Become such a big global talking point today with this new show, whether that is a key metric too. I think it'll be interesting to see in a different streaming age we're now living in, whether shows like these with big names like these still have a hold.
Yeah, because of course there was that £100 million Netflix deal, and like you said, those days have gone now. The scramble's gone. The content is there. You know, they did the Tell-All documentary, didn't they, Harry and Meghan? They did a docuseries about polo, and of course the Invictus Games, and now this. Where does it go next? Obviously, if that second series isn't commissioned, Meghan seems to have other irons in the fire. She's hinted at another podcast. Of course, it's a £20 million deal with Spotify that only garnered, you know, a handful of episodes. I think Archetypes was the name of the podcast. And merchandise as well. We saw scrolling through a website of jams and sprinkly flowers that she seems to put on everything she makes in that program. So it's almost like this is a platform. And nowadays, this second screening, which is only a term I've come across recently, where programs are commissioned for people to watch while they're actually scrolling on their phone. Is this one of them?
I mean, like, I certainly think that there are merchandise opportunities, and that this is a way for Meghan to, you know, enhance and extend her brand that she's already been able to build up for herself. And I think if you are a person like that, and the fact that you are able to cross into podcasting and also onto mediums like YouTube, you know, which is growing all the time, particularly with younger viewers, I think you know, that is certainly giving more opportunity. I think though, with streamers, they want to have a return. They want to ensure that audiences are coming back for them. And I think it's sort of a key question, you know, really generally with a lot of creators is, you know, you can sign these big deals, but in the long run, you have to really deliver the goods, you know, whether that is viewing figures or whether that is a lot of interest about your new program. I think, you know, if you're not having those sustainable viewing figures over a period of time, your contract's not going to get renewed. I think in Harry and Meghan's case, you know, they're able to sort of now work with anyone they want to. I guess in the long term is where it will be sustainable for decades, not just only for a few years.
And now traditionally golf might not seem like a young person's game, but my next guest tonight is certainly looking
All
to
right,
change that.
there's a wildfire in Long Island right now.
Fighting this fire, there are hot spots. We have helicopters and drones up to spot those, because with the winds that we had, and although the winds have died down, it's still windy here. We got about 20-mile-an-hour winds. So there's a fear that these embers may reunite and set this going again. So we have several fire departments that have not left the scene, that are still going, putting out the hot spots, going out and being directed by helicopters and drones. And look, when the governor of the state calls, the United States Senator Schumer calls, the mayor of New York City, our county executive in my neighboring county, Bruce Blakeman, calls, we're all in this together. We all come together. It's a good lesson. It took a fire, but you know what? In many ways, we faced a lot of other fires, and we would do much better to do what we did in this instance. Come together, work together, cooperate, and get the job done.
As you mentioned, there are still people that are fighting the fires there. What advice do you have for people that live in the area that's impacted by all of this, whether that fire is out or if it is still burning?
Well, obviously, we were concerned about air quality because we have heavy smoke, and you could see it from the photos that you showed. So we're concerned about that. Stay inside whenever possible. And we have a number of road closures so our firefighters can get in and out of the area. So please respect that. Go around those road closures. It may be a little inconvenient, but do that. And for the people in the area, know that you're volunteer. These are all volunteer firefighters. You're volunteer firefighters out there on their time fighting this fire. And we will put, we have it under control. We have it about 80% contained, and we're just watching to get the last 20% out and standing guard so it doesn't reunite.
All right, Ed Romaine, County Executive there for Suffolk County, New York. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here.
All right, let's go to China's economic challenges with Larry Summers.
Too early to know for sure. I think that the technology developments around DeepSeek are an important reminder of China's profound technological capacity. I think there are signs that the Chinese government is having, frankly, a kind of experience that often happens in societies where fear does the work of reason. Their fear of economic stagnation is driving a rapprochement with their technology businesses, which have enormous potential economic energy. And there are some signs that the commitment to economic reform is increasing in China. I also have to say that I think the degree of division that has been created in the last 2 weeks between the United States and Europe, the degree of abandonment of the developing world that the United States has manifest with its attack on developing countries, with efforts to essentially eliminate our international aid agencies, that is also an immense strategic gift to China. And I cannot imagine a greater strategic gift over the medium and long term to China than the prospect that has been raised by the Secretary of Defense with White House support of 8% annual defense cuts for the United States on an annual basis going forward.
Elizabeth Economy, senior fellow at the Hoover Institution, gave us an overview of the 2 sessions, what they could mean for the direction of the Chinese economy, and how the United States might respond.
And it's not just about the economy. They're going to...
We'll have to alert suppliers, coordinate shipments. Already alerted, already coordinated. Since when can we just scale up mid-cycle? Since we brought in BDO.
People who know BDO. And it's not just about the economy. They're going to look at foreign policy. They're going to look at the judiciary and the anti-corruption campaign. They'll look at the military. And then third, it's an opportunity to present new proposals and ideas for legislation. And they'll present a couple thousand different proposals over the course of the year and then debate them during this period. So it's a kind of interesting moment. But fundamentally, this is about assessing how successful has the Chinese government been and what do they need to do moving forward.
Put us in the seats of some of the delegates. What are the challenges do you think that they are looking at right now?
And there's no doubt that the Chinese economy, I think, from COVID until now, has faced a pretty significant set of challenges. At the same time, January was not so bad. You had the breakthrough of China's AI company DeepSeek. You had some good news in the property sector, some good news in lending. So I think there's enough that Xi Jinping and the sort of Chinese leadership can speak to that's reasonably positive, and they'll try to make the case that right now they're going through some challenges, but they see the path forward and ultimately they will succeed. So the delegates know the reality of the economy on the ground, but they're going to be also, caught in the middle of some pretty positive propaganda that the leadership is going to try to feed to them.
As they come together with a plan for the future, what levers could they pull? I mean, and let me be specific. How much fiscal headspace do they have? Because I've read a lot of things about the level of debt that actually may be underestimated on part of the Chinese government.
Right. So, they put forward a number of steps, fiscal stimulus back in September. And again, it seemed to have some positive implications for the economy.
How would you describe the overall economic goals of China, of the Chinese government right now?
I mean, China has a number of goals. I think, one goal certainly is to Trump-proof the economy. Xi Jinping, announced his theory of dual circulation, which is basically the idea that China can innovate, manufacture, and consume largely within itself. He says, the Chinese economy is incomparable in terms of its size and its ingenuity. It wants to continue to export, to continue to have, foreign manufacturers depend on China for parts of their supply chains. But, for the most part, he wants to insulate China from the pressures of the global economy. I think that's one big goal. Again, I think number two, they want to, make China the leading innovation power in the world. They want to increase GDP per capita. That's really slowed down in the past couple of years. They want consumer spending to be rebooted. So I think they have a lot of different kinds of goals for their economy. Fundamentally, Xi Jinping, I think, is saying this is a difficult period for us, but it's part of our industrial upgrading. These are sort of normal bumps in the road. Once we get through these, challenges, it's, we're going to see the Chinese economy take off. So I think there are a lot of different elements to this in terms of what Xi Jinping wants to see moving forward.
Let me ask about two specific sectors. One is, I call it green energy. It can be EVs, solar panels, things like that. The other is tech. Does Xi Jinping need to win on those, or is flourishing enough? And does he need to beat the United States?
No, I think at this point, this is a zero-sum game in Xi Jinping's mind. And I think if you listen, and if you've listened to his rhetoric over the past, more than decades since he came to power, about the East is rising and the West is declining, we're going to have the triumph of socialism over capitalism, and all the targets that he's put in place, he wants China to be the number one innovation power in the world. And that does mean supplanting the United States. So I do think that this is, to some extent, China beating the United States. Just to look at one of the things that they're going to be looking at in the two sessions is how successful China has been with its Made in China 2025 program. And this was a plan that was put in place under Xi Jinping in 2015 to ensure that Chinese companies would become the dominant manufacturers in China across 10 critical cutting-edge technologies, like clean tech, like new materials, like semiconductors, like medical devices.
What's the sad thing? Is all this technology was either transferred, stolen, or we invested into China and built up the supply chain and the economic clustering, because we thought that we were going to be able to produce goods in the United States and have Chinese consumers buy them because they had such a large potential market, or create those goods in China and that they would produce them. But what happened was the US firms didn't benefit from exporting to China. They had a short-term benefit of exporting from China into the United States. And now they've been either kicked out or forced to come back through tariffs and other means. And what has been left over in the Chinese market is know-how. So all of this potential benefit that over 30 years that the United States firms thought they were going to be able to sell goods to the Chinese market, it didn't happen. It didn't happen. And all we did was gut our manufacturing in the process. And now we created a more technologically know-how China. China couldn't be the way it is today if it wasn't for our FDI, if it wasn't for our IP. They couldn't do it. But now they can, because our American firms were fucking idiots. Self-centered, short-term, self-centered, short-term, hurt the American manufacturing base, and now we've built up China in the process. And they didn't even bother to buy our goods. Think GM's going to be selling cars to China? No.
A global champion, so they would dominate the global economy. And we've already seen this happen, I think, to some extent in the sectors that you mentioned, or at least in the clean tech sector. I think we should expect to see China in the low-end semiconductors, in new materials, in AI, do exactly what it's done in the clean tech sector for those sectors as well. So we're going to be facing an enormous amount of overcapacity, an enormous amount of competition from Chinese companies moving forward.
President Trump seems to have a somewhat different goal in mind. So let's flip over to the other side here. As we look and a new Trump administration that is imposing and threatening very restrictive tariffs. How big a risk is that for China?
I think China has spent the past 8 years preparing for the eventuality of more tariffs. There hasn't been a moment since the first Trump administration that there haven't been more tariffs placed on goods from China and various kinds of goods. So I think this is nothing new for them. I think they've taken several steps proactively to reduce the share of Chinese exports that overall that go to the United States. They've relocated some of their manufacturing to third countries to try to avoid the tariffs. They tried to make progress in that idea of creating, fortress China to become less dependent on the global economy, including the United States. And I think critically, they've developed their own retaliatory toolkit, right? So when we put tariffs on China, China responds by putting, tariffs back on U.S. goods. They, will single out U.S. companies like Google or like Micron for investigations. And even if those investigations don't amount to much, the mere threat, the mere statement that they're going to do that can often spook suppliers and consumers inside China and make it very difficult for those companies. They've taken up export controls, right? So we've seen a range now of critical minerals that China has placed new licensing requirements on. And those are minerals that we need and metals that we need for our defense industry, for our own clean tech industry. So China has a lot of tools at its disposal that it's prepared to deploy.
Our goal is to produce
All right. Well, American firms made their bed, now they got to sleep in it. The bottom line is this. We gave them that economic prowess because we wanted cheap goods and to have them buy our debt from the Treasury Department. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get this gel. You can get this gel either in a tube form or in a dispenser form. It's a dual purpose gel. It helps to heal your skin. You can apply it on your skin as a skincare. Put it on at night, exfoliate in the morning. You'll notice that your skin's clearer and healthier looking. If you have a cut, an abrasion, or a minor burn, put it on there and it'll heal the cut, abrasion, or minor burn quicker. If someone's not feeling well around you, or you're not feeling well because of the season, guess what? Put it on your hands, around your mouth, around your eyes, around your nose, around your ears. Lightly coat your nostrils. Stays active for 5.5 hours. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get this gel. Use it also as an aftershave. Guys, if you shave your face, put it on your face and you can it'll soothe the shaving burn, that razor burn. And women, if you're shaving your legs, guess what? Use it after you shave and it'll reduce the razor burn. It's a dual purpose product. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5 and get $5 off. Guess what? You never know when you need this. So make sure you have it at home or at work. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Another great stack that I want to talk about to improve your immune system is magnesium and zinc. Take it every day, drink it with filtered water because it's water soluble. If you're not feeling well, take a double dose. Take 1 dose in the morning, take another dose in the evening. Once you start feeling better, then go back to your maintenance dose of once a day. Now, it stacks really well with olive leaf extract because olive leaf extract also helps with your immune system, but it also helps with your cardiovascular system. So it's a dual purpose. Now, olive leaf extract will bring down inflammation, help with the immune system and your vascular system because it's bringing down inflammation even at the vascular level. And olive leaf extract helps to bring down LDL and increase your HDL levels. So it's improving your total cholesterol. If you have less LDL and you have less inflammation, you have less plaque buildup. So olive leaf extract is really important to take every day. A great inexpensive stack is to take the olive leaf extract and the magnesium and zinc together, and you're improving your immune system and your cardiovascular system. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5, get the magnesium and zinc and the olive leaf extract. This is a pretty good stack for you. So Please help support my work by getting the products on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The link is in the description of this video and all my videos. All right, I want to pivot to young people turning to skilled trade jobs, report shows. This was published about 40 minutes ago.
Or trade jobs on the rise. More Gen Zers are ditching college to pursue a career in the trades. 78% of Americans are seeing increased interest in this type of work among young people, and enrollment in trade-focused community colleges jumped 16% in recent years. And the job salaries, they don't hurt either. Take a look at this. Median salaries for these trades, all above or close to 6 figures per year. And you can work at these jobs without having to sell a farm for a bachelor's degree. The average federal debt is now close to $40,000. More young people are going to wake up to this reality, it seems, when they have to start paying off those loans, because now we have a president in office that will likely expect people to have to pay their debt rather than just wiping it away, the responsible thing to do. But Taylor, I want to ask you about this, because we're both raising young kids in this environment, right? We're probably having long-term visions about what we want our kids to grow up and start to prepare for. And I find this to be so interesting. The largest occupations for men to pursue without college degrees, truck drivers, construction laborers, first-line supervisors, and for women, nursing, sales workers, cashiers, waitresses.
Love it. Okay, so this is a funny joke. My daughter, we taught her how to count to 10. And I sent the video to my dad and I said, she's so smart, maybe she'll go to NYU like her mother. And my dad said, that's a little liberal. Maybe like just forego college and do a trade. I was like, Dad, way to like get on board with the trades. I love it. So we're totally coming around. Even that generation, I love it. And I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll, skip home to my daughter, given just the cost and again, the ROI, the return on investment. Maybe she'll learn how to teach herself to code. And my dad was like, no, we really need mechanics and plumbers. My dad's in the trucking business, desperate for anyone who will drive a truck and to help with the engine, rebuild the engine. And so again, but for me, it comes back to this stereotype, because my brain has been ingrained that trades are bad, it's down, if you don't get to go to college, or if it's you can't go to college. And instead of, I need to change my mind as well as begin to change my daughter before she starts thinking this way, that it's a wonderful alternative. It's not a worse thing, so to say, but I certainly have been brainwashed, if you will, to think that trades somehow aren't good enough. And shame on all of us for thinking that.
I think that's a great point, Ken, because what oftentimes when I think about the trades, I
want to shift over. Live Now is talking about this gas pipeline strike in Ukraine by Russia.
For not only their values, but also for American values that are universal for us. What is not an American value more than fighting for freedom of their own country? And I really hope, and my message is that we must continue to stand with Ukraine. We must continue to provide military aid, intelligence sharing, and intelligence sharing doesn't cost much, right? So these are the basic principles of allies, to share information, to give support when it's needed. And I really hope that the current administration will reconsider and provide much needed support, because we see with no support, attacks will happen more often, more people will die. It's not just the games, it's not just politics anymore, or it hasn't been really for the past 3 years. It's actually people's lives that are at stake right now. And with less support, there will be just only more casualties, more people dying, including children, families. We've seen fathers losing their entire families, 3 daughters and wife. And this is happening every day, unfortunately. And that's going to continue to happen if Ukraine does not receive much needed support from the US.
My last question here before I let you go, can you tell me a little bit about United Help Ukraine and what you do?
Of course, United Help Ukraine is an American organization helping Ukrainian people. Since our beginning in 2014, this is when Russia started the war, annexing Crimea, we've been helping Ukrainian people with medical aid, humanitarian aid, We're very proud to say that before we were 100% volunteer-based. Now we've grown to a big national organization, actually international. We have logistics, humanitarian hubs in Germany, in Ukraine. We were the first responders. We were there the first 2 weeks of Russia full-scale invasion, having our logistics hub developed in March of 2022. We're very proud to say that 94 cents of every dollar goes to our programming. And with that is medical supplies. We serve over 200 hospitals in Ukraine. Humanitarian supplies to people who really suffer from lack of water, lack of energy. And I'm also proud to say that over $75 million that our organization has deployed already to Ukraine. We actually don't depend on federal grants. We don't receive money from the government. It's from regular, ordinary people, Americans who send us their wonderful notes, who corporations and foundations who understand the importance of work in Ukraine, where we provide psychological assistance, we provide sustainable programs to make sure people have everything they need to survive, but also help them later when the war is over to rebuild and thrive into the future.
Marina, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and help explain this a little bit further from a firsthand perspective. Thank you again, and please have a good rest of your weekend.
Thank you so much, Jeff, for having me. Of
course. Time now 11:16 on the East Coast and 8:16 on the West Coast. We are going to head to a quick 2-minute commercial break. The first one.
All right, we're going to go back to the young people turning to skilled trades.
And how they are able to control their own destiny by applying their trade, their art, their craft. And I'm wondering if you have those same conversations on your podcast.
Well, yes, and you just hit the nerve. So here's what's going on. Young people are now seeing the degree and the loan that comes with it as the thing that's inhibiting their ability to live their dreams. In other words, buy a house and start a family. The crushing debt has now become the real image or the symbolism of college. And young people are seeing that. They're going, wait a second, I could go over here in the trades and I can apprentice as an electrician for a couple of years, make $50,000 as an 18, 19-year-old. I've covered these stories. And then eventually own their own business. And here's where the story's getting better. We're seeing major venture capitalist firms, Brian, that are buying up local.
Now, my brothers used to work in doing taxes for individuals when they were starting their accounting careers. They said that when they were doing the taxes for plumbers, electricians, that they made more money take home than a doctor or a lawyer. It behooves you to be an electrician or a plumber. But you got to have your own business. That's the key. That's the key. It's to have your own business.
Owned electrician, plumbing firms. So my point is, the American dream is a lot clearer through the path to the trades than it is through college, and that's the reality. I think we're at a real hinge right now in American history as to whether higher education pivots and makes it.
And Jackie, I want to ask you about this because it's all about, you know, kind of getting your own American dream and earning enough money to make your way. And there's so many different routes to doing that. And the trades are increasingly, we just went through the numbers of how much people are earning. Kevin O'Leary posted on LinkedIn. He says, I tell young people all the time, by the time you hit 33 years old, you should have at least $100,000 saved somewhere. Make that your goal. I mean, that sounds like a great goal, and it makes a lot of sense. And it seems like based on the numbers that we're talking about in the trades, that seems possible. The time you're 33, if you're coming out without college debt, without a loan to pay off.
So what's the alternative? To go to college, have to pay off the debt, and then not be able to save that by the time you're 33? I know a ton of people who went to great schools and got the perceived good job when they graduated, and they are still paying off their college debt. But to the conversation that we had earlier when Jerry was on set and we were talking about the college campuses and anti-Semitism and President Trump saying we're going to pull the federal funding and me saying you should pull the or raise the endowment tax as well. You look at what's going on these campuses, Taylor, to your point, it has changed the perception a little bit more because you think about what am I paying so much for my kid to go to that campus, to get indoctrinated, to get brainwashed. and essentially not focusing on the studies at all, but focusing on this curriculum that they want to shove down your throat. So at this point, I would be a renegade, and I'm one of the people who understand that stigma that you're talking about not going to college. I get that. That was ingrained in me too. But I think the tide has shifted where you don't need that anymore. If anything, people hear you came out of an Ivy League school and they're like, oh, so you're going to bring those kinds of ideas with you, and they're kind of rolling their eyes.
Stay away.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of respect now for people in the trades, because there's definitely this thought, like this recognition that they can really make their own way. They can be their own boss and dictate their own future here.
Yep. It's all about being your own boss. Let's talk about the third pillar of this core protocol that I have. The first pillar is the max 35 or the max 14 to help boost up your immune system. The second pillar is the C60 to soak up free radicals. The third pillar is to bring down inflammation to help with your immune system, but it also helps with your cardiovascular system. It's a dual purpose stack. So you start with taking turmeric. Turmeric brings down inflammation and also soaks up free radicals. That's important to reduce oxidized LDL, but also to bring down inflammation and boost up your immune system and bring down that inflammation, which is the first signal for building up plaque in your vascular system. So you want to take turmeric every day to bring down that inflammation. Take ashwagandha with turmeric. This will help to control the cortisol levels and to control your blood glucose levels and reduce inflammation. That's positive for your vascular system and your immune system. High cortisol levels and high glucose levels are inflammatory. And lignans. Lignans is a powder. You mix it with soft foods or with filtered water. Take it every day. There's a small scooper in here. Very powerful. It brings down inflammation. It also soaks up free radicals. It helps with the immune system, helps with the cardiovascular system, just like the turmeric, but it also helps with your endocrine system. So please go to my store, get the lignans. You can take these separately, but you get a very powerful synergistic effect when you take them together, which is called a stack. So this right here is an affordable stack to target two different systems, your cardiovascular system and your immune system. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the lignans, the turmeric, and the ashwagandha. Take it every day, and you're going to see improvements. Please go to my store, use discount 5, all caps, discount the number 5, and you get $5 off any order. All right. I want to see.
Professional physician at one of Dhaka's health.
I want to see the Fox Business News interviewing Kennedy here.
To bring in Louisiana Senator, Mr. John Kennedy. We haven't seen Senator Kennedy in a while, sir. Thank you for coming back. Quick comment. You know Scott Besson. He's probably come by. You've interviewed him. This is a guy's an old school, elegant Southerner, sharp as a tack, pro-growth. I think he's the mainstay of the Trump cabinet. What do you think, Senator Kennedy? What's your view of it?
Here's what I think the Treasury Secretary understands well. When moms and dads lie down to sleep at night and can't, the thing that they're most worried about is high prices. That's not to say they're not worried about other things, but it's high prices, and we can't lose sight of that. We can get these high prices down, but we're going to have to do 3 things, and I think Scott understands. Number 1, we've got to reduce spending. Number 2, we've got to deregulate the economy so goods and services cost less. And number 3, we've got to redesign the tax code so it looks like somebody designed it on purpose. As you pointed out, since 2010, GDP growth has averaged a little over 2%. That's not enough. It's got to be 3% or better. That will stimulate the economy and grow wages. If we do those 3 things, as I think the Treasury Secretary understands, people will be able to deal with these high prices and products and services will go down. But we're not talking enough. We're talking about the things we need to do, Larry, to get high prices down, but we're not tying them together for the American people. And the Treasury Secretary is very good at that.
Yeah.
Most of the publicity has been on the spending cuts. And look, I'm all for them. I think Elon Musk is a rock star. The tofu crowd is mad, but you know, when you trim fat, pigs squeal. That's just the way the world works. That's a law of nature.
Well, so just on the inflation front, getting costs down, you're 100% right. You know, look, for 2 or 3 years on this show, I talked about Biden's affordability crisis, where prices rising faster than wages. So now, Senator, just to work through it with me. On the one hand, we can lower tax burdens on the middle class, so that'll help pocketbooks get a little fatter. But on the other hand, I think 2 things. You need less government spending. You need much less government spending to hold down prices. And I think the Federal Reserve needs much less money printing also. You know, they're part of the problem here. Now, you may disagree, but I just thought I'd throw that out because I think it's a multi-pronged effort.
Well, I would agree with the multi-pronged effort comment. How did we get this inflation and these high prices? Government overspent.
Yeah.
How we're going to get out of it? We're going to have to spend less money. The strength of the U.S. dollar matters. The U.S. dollar is the world's reserve currency. Actually, that's probably not true. I think the real reserve currency in the world is a Taylor Swift concert ticket. But the U.S. dollar is number 2.
Okay.
If we reduce spending, interest rates will fall. Well, we also got to deregulate the economy, and we've got to increase wages. And the only way you can do that is to stimulate the economy, which we're going to do through our reconciliation package.
No, I love that. I love all that. Absolutely right. Taylor Swift notwithstanding. So, Senator Kennedy, our friend Rand Paul, Senator Rand Paul, another very smart chap, he's talking about using the Doge, turning the Doge savings, and for that matter, any savings, into permanent cuts to the baseline through rescission authority, which, as you know, is really only 51 votes and hasn't been used in many, many years. By the way, can I just say, sir, way back when I was a young man working for Ronald Reagan in his budget office, I was assistant budget director then. I was 12 years old. But we used rescission authority a lot. But it hadn't been used. It's seldom used. Now, I'm hoping that the administration, Russ Vought and Scott Bessent and so forth, and works with you all in the Senate and the House and goes for these rescissions. Take the money out.
It's a no-brainer. We talked about it with Elon Musk yesterday at lunch. We need to pounce on this concept of rescission like a ninja. And what does that mean? That just means you introduce a bill to take the spending cuts found by Mr. Musk and to have Congress take the money back. It just takes a majority vote. We don't have to wait till Mr. Musk is through with his work. We can do it piecemeal. We need to start on it immediately. That's what we talked about at lunch yesterday, and I think you're going to see the first rescission package come to the floor within the next 3 weeks. It makes perfect sense, and I understand
that is a great idea. That is a great idea. And what it does is it circumvents this whole Supreme Court ruling where you're forced to give the foreign aid. Congress needs to step up and
understand
start
the president's going to be
stopping the wasteful spending.
Yeah.
That will end the worry about all the lawsuits.
Yeah.
The tofu mob has filed so many lawsuits saying Musk doesn't have the authority, only Congress does. Okay, let Congress do it.
Right.
Yeah, good for you.
Right.
And the other part I've been reading about, you're railing on correctly all this fraud around Social Security, all the fraud about Social Security. And the president mentioned it in his speech to the Congress He was kidding. He said to Bobby Kennedy, okay, Bobby, maybe people are healthier. They live to be 150. But you and I know they don't live to be 150, even though you and I might want them to live to be 150. The fact is they don't. And that kind of money should be pulled out. It's not ending Social Security. It's ending the fraud in Social Security.
Yeah. We can fix it very easily. I've been working on it though since 2018. But I think we're going to move the bill here in the next few weeks. In a nutshell, when you die, your name is sent to the Social Security Administration. They compile what's called a death master file. But Social Security for years refused to share the list of dead people with anybody else in government, including the Department of Treasury. So I've got a bill to require them to do that and to share that list permanently with the Treasury Department and everybody else in the federal government who sends out checks, so we can stop sending checks.
I want to, I missed it. France 24 was saying that China is doing a new warning against Taiwan. But I missed that post there.
To dead people. It's not complicated. It triggers my gag reflex to think that it's taken me 7 years to get this done, but I've had a lot of opposition.
Senator, last one. I got a minute left. You're a very smart chap. You and I have worked together. We mostly agree. Let me ask you, how do you step back for a second? Are you happy, satisfied, might be the better word, with the Trumpian economic policy? Because it's different than it was in his first term, particularly with respect to bringing down spending and bringing down federal workforce and things of that nature. How do you read it, Senator Kennedy? Are you happy with it? Does it need improvement, and where?
I think President Trump on economics and otherwise is doing very well. But you remember the old saying, the danger of rising high is that the air gets thin. I'm worried about the tariffs.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that tariffs are going to cause inflation. President Trump did them in his first term, and they didn't. I'm saying that we just don't know. We're in very obscure territory. We're in uncharted waters. I think if the tariffs do start to cause inflation, I think the president will back away from them. And I'm not saying that I don't trust President Trump, but there's another saying, trust in God, but tie up your camel. If this starts causing inflation, we're going to have to recalibrate, because I'm telling you, I'm not saying the border isn't important, Ukraine and the Middle East and culture wars and Academy Awards and Super Bowl, all those things are important. But the single most important thing, the things that moms and dads worry about when they lie down and sleep at night and can't, and the thing they expect the president to fix is high prices. And we can do it, but we've got to start. We have started, but we've got to go full speed ahead beginning now.
Yes, sir. Senator Kennedy, if you ask me, you're on message. I appreciate you coming.
We need to rebuild our manufacturing more than worrying about our short-term inflationary pressure if that happens because of tariffs. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the zeolite. This will help to soak up heavy metals, toxins, chemicals, forever chemicals. It'll bind to the zeolite and it'll allow you to urinate it out in 6 to 8 hours. You should be taking this every day. Take 2 drops underneath your tongue, 2 small drops. Drink filtered water. Do that every day to detoxify your body. Also, make sure you drink filtered water. Reduce your exposure to processed foods, because processed foods have chemicals in it. And also clean your environment in your house. Be mindful of what's in the garage, what's in your basement, what's in your closets or cupboards. Cleaning agents, they can disrupt your immune system and your endocrine system. And you need to double layer it or triple layer it to reduce your exposure if you have to have those in your home. But take zeolite every day, 2 small drops underneath your tongue. Some people prefer to do a heavier detox once or twice a year. You can do that by taking 5 small drops underneath your tongue, drink the filtered water, do that every day until the bottle is done, and do that once or twice a year. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the zeolite, detoxify your body. Really important. Now, a lot of people, they're worried about the tariffs, potentially creating more inflation. You know what potentially creates this inflationary spike that we had? There were 2 mistakes that the Federal Reserve made during the Biden administration. One, they misread the inflationary data and they thought it was transitory. That came from Janet Yellen from the Treasury Department, and the Federal Reserve did not react. They should have spiked the interest rates when they started noticing this inflationary pressure. When they missed the boat, they should have shocked the system. They didn't do that. They staircased it. That was a big mistake. Misinterpreting the inflationary data, thinking it was transitory, and not shocking the system. Second, they did too many cuts of the interest rate in 2024 with the unemployment rate below 5% and the inflation above the inflation target above 2%. And because they were lowering rates, that was inflationary. Because what it did was it created more money to feed into the economy and led to further inflationary pressure. You cut rates when the unemployment rate is above 5% and the inflation is below 2%, not the other way around. So the Federal Reserve is what created this inflationary problem that we have. Now, there are some idiosyncratic things going on with egg prices and milk prices because of the bird flu, but that's idiosyncratic. But the big issue with the inflation is because of the mistake that the Treasury Department made with reading the inflationary data under Janet Yellen and the response function from the Federal Reserve. That's why we have inflation. It has nothing to do with tariffs. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the nattokinase. This nattokinase will break up clots because it's fibrinolytic, and it will bring down LDL levels and help with your HDL levels. So it's going to help with your cardiovascular health. Really important. Now, let me tell you about this great stack to help with your cardiovascular health. D3 and K2 together will help to pull the calcium that's around plaque. Calcium deposits take place around plaque, not just oxidized LDL. So it's pulling that out, and it is reducing the chances of further calcium depositing. All right. So take the D3, the K2 together to help with your cardiovascular health. But if you do resistance training and you take in calcium through a supplement or drinking milk, which is how I get my calcium, and you're doing that resistance training, you're improving your bone structure. You're depositing more bone matrix, so your bone density will improve. This is really important when you get older, for males and females, but especially for females if they're postmenopausal. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the D3 and the K2 to help with your bone health and your cardiovascular health. And if you stack it with nattokinase, you're supercharging the cardiovascular health stack. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, use discount 5, get the vitamin D, the K2, and the nattokinase together. Very powerful stack. This is affordable, and it's a dual purpose. You're helping with your bones, and you're helping with your cardiovascular health. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. So in the news, you'll keep on hearing, oh, prices are, still elevated. It's all because of tariffs. The majority of the price pressure is because of a failure of the Federal Reserve. Okay, I want to go to France 24 about Taiwan here.
Pressure on Taipei in recent years with frequent military drills around the island. Taiwan is a self-governed island, but China says it's part of its own territory and has not ruled out using military force to claim it. Shirley Safon has more.
There are the military operations, which China has carried out in the waters south of Taiwan, and then there are the words. China has repeatedly said it intends to regain control of the self-ruled island. The latest statements are a clear warning to those who oppose its plans.
The more rampant Taiwan independent separatists become, the tighter the noose around their necks and the sharper the sword hanging over their heads will be. We warn the GBB authorities, come back from the precipice before it's too late, otherwise you meet a dead end.
These words come after the U.S. reportedly unfroze some $870 million worth of security assistance to Taiwan at a time when Washington cuts down most of its foreign aid, amid expanding tensions between China and the U.S. over trade. Taiwan is investing in its defense forces while saying it's confident it could count on its ally.
I believe the US cannot withdraw from the Indo-Pacific region, as it is their core interest.
China announced it will increase again its military budget, this time by 7.2%. Its military spending, now at 1.6% of its GDP, are about a third of the US military spending.
Canada's ruling Liberal Party will announce Justin Trudeau's successor at.
All right, let's go back to Canada here for a second.
If confirmed, he'll take the helms of a country in the midst of a trade war with the US, which could deal blows to the Canadian economy.
He returned home to his supporters to make his bid for the party leadership. Mark Carney made it clear he wanted to become Canada's 24th Prime Minister.
I'm back home in Edmonton to declare my candidacy for leader of the Liberal Party and Prime Minister of Canada.
He says he has the experience Canada needs.
Consider this. I've helped manage multiple crises, and I've helped save 2 economies.
Mark Carney is a former governor of the Bank of Canada and a former governor of the Bank of England. He has served as an advisor to Justin Trudeau and to Boris Johnson. Carney was born in Canada's remote Northwest Territories in 1965. He went to Harvard and worked at Goldman Sachs before being named Deputy Governor of the Bank of Canada in 2003. He became governor in 2008 at the age of 42. In 2020, after almost 7 years at the Bank of England, he served as a UN envoy on finance and climate change. In the Liberal Party leadership battle, he argued Canada must fight the US President Donald Trump and his tariffs by diversifying trading relations. He argues he's the only person prepared to handle Trump.
We have to recognize that Donald Trump of today is different than the Donald Trump of several years ago. Then his objective was to take more of our market. Now he wants to take.
It looks like there's a breaking news from RT that Ukraine strikes market in Russian town.
French language TV debate compared to the 3 other candidates, and the opposition Conservatives say he lied about his role moving an investment firm's office from Canada to the United States when he was chairman of that company.
So my co-CEO
discussion on around the world. Coming up in our daily culture show, film critic Ben Kroll tells us more about Bong Joon-ho's latest
All right,
comedy.
what I want to do is I'm going to pivot over to Bloomberg talking about defense spending in Europe. And then I'm going to try to dive into a little bit of what's going on with Ukraine's strike on Russian small town market.
Hi, just on the last few days, the last week, we've seemed to have had a sort of the embodiment of the Trump doctrine as we've been hearing it. It's really coming into reality. We've had the Kremlin over the last few days sort of endorse the Trump administration's worldview. How does this change the situation for Europe?
Well, first of all, good morning and thanks also for inviting me. Well, definitely, during last weeks we see, what I would call, quite a turbulent development. It's still perhaps finally will be American strategy. We can watch how it's evolving. Of course, from another side, there is more and more understanding among European leaders that we need to take much more responsibility on our
I'm gonna
pause
Bloomberg
also
here.
much more
I'm gonna pause Bloomberg here and go to RT because multiple casualties, including death reported from attack. Ukraine uses U.S. HIMARS missiles to hit market.
Veldig godt å tenke på at det en slags blodveie. Den ble bygget av mennesker som var fraktet dit, og som ikke
All
skulle
right,
vende
so
tilbake.
they're playing. All right, here we go. Hopefully this is breaking.
Take a fresh look around at life. Kaleidoscope.
Right now it's only on the ticker. Right now this is only on a ticker, so we don't have a broadcast yet on RT. So I'll keep on watching for the broadcast, and then this just happened, and then let's continue on with this defense spending in Europe.
understanding that threats coming from aggressive Russia are real threats. And both intelligence services of different countries are saying that Russia can be ready to, for new aggressive actions against EU or NATO member states before 2030. That is influencing all of our decisions.
And one of your jobs is to basically figure out what is there, what is still needed. And part of your job is to put a price tag on what that is right now. So what is the price tag in terms of European defense as we see the United States withdrawing in order to expand the Sky Shield, that all the military hardware, potentially extending the nuclear umbrella from France? What is the price?
Well, the price depends, first of all, on NATO evaluations. We are speaking very clear language. We are not, trying to replace NATO. NATO now is reviewing defense plans and also so-called NATO capability targets. As we understand, they will come out with final numbers for June summit. So we can evaluate, some of those numbers which are appearing in the public media even. That's usually when there is a secret, so media is able to find some of those secrets. So based on those numbers, which we can read, for example, last year was very important publication in the world. Approximate value of just implementation of NATO capability targets, which means tanks, artillery pieces, vehicles, and so on. It's around 500 billion. But if we add in air defense shield, military mobility needs, space defense shield, so the numbers are increasing very rapidly.
And when you say increasing rapidly, do you mean they double, triple potentially? Is this
potentially that can be? So that means that really the financial needs are very, very important. So that is why the decision, the announcement, and which by Commission President of this initiative around EU and what was done yesterday by the Council are very important.
But they may not go far enough, right? This is one of the concerns. So my question is, after we've got this 150 billion loan, we've made some fiscal space for a number of member states to take out more debt, though many will say that A, they're not following the rules to begin with, and B, the limiting factor is not the EU rules, it's the bond market and it's the debt that they have already. Does Europe need to go further? Do we need to start having a very active discussion on joint debt? Do we need to talk about frozen Russian assets? Where do you see that coming from? Where is this money going to come from?
Yeah, I would say we need to be open for, to see how things will develop. So now really the space is created for member states to invest much more into their defense. We see some very strong actions from, for example, from German side, from forthcoming new German government. So we need to watch, how much member states will use those opportunities, and of course we need to be open for possibilities to look into, some kind of new instruments. But that will come. It's not we cannot predict now. But as I said, we need to do first steps and then to see what is coming.
And I think one of the concerns, though, is also at the EU level is so built on consensus building, which is part of the nature of democracy. But in sort of war times and trying to scale things up, it is not always the most effective mechanism to get things done. We're seeing some of that at the fact that there are only 26 members that signed one of the major conclusions from the summit. How difficult will Viktor Orban make these decisions for the European Union? And are you confident that you'll be able to roll over sanctions next week?
Well,
When your clients want outperformance, consider how Vanguard active fixed income funds have consistently surpassed competitors. Discover our active side.
Well, of course, it would be good to have unity very strong without any problems, but life is life. And I hope that, really we are able to make the needed decisions. 27, sometimes it appears that, 26 are able to make an agreement. We see a lot of, informal consultations among leaders in Europe, in London, in Paris, and so on. So things are moving, I'm always quoting Jean Monnet, to myself and in general to public, when he said, in 1957, when the Rome Treaty was signed, that, European community will be created during the crisis, and what will be created during the crisis, that will be community. So now we're facing defense crisis, and that is why, it's very clear that, this crisis is pushing everybody, to make decisions. I hope that, the governance crisis will not come, so that we should need to look into some additional, possibilities.
And we've heard some proposals from various member state leaders. We heard from Giorgia Meloni floating the idea of extending Article 5 protections to Ukraine without full NATO membership. Is this something that is gaining traction in conversations?
Well, of course, that is not my portfolio. I'm much more on material things, on industry. But definitely guarantees. We need really just peace and peace or strength, and strength also should come for security guarantees for Ukraine. How it will be established, well, we shall see. But it's very clear that there is clear understanding that some guarantees are needed very much.
And moving into the material world, Starlink, for example, an active part in the Ukraine war. How quickly could Europe replace Starlink if it were required?
Of course, we are looking, we hope that, Americans will not do some kind of such things, because it can hit very much, credibility of Americans as partners. But in any case, technologically, there is possibility to replace, either in a few months' time, or even if the need will be, very quick, it's possible.
And we've also heard from Trump yesterday saying that basically he will not defend NATO nations that are delinquent. There's a lot of conditions now being set by the United States on basically whether or not they will honor NATO obligations. Do you believe that Article 5 still covers, do you believe that the nuclear umbrella still covers all of NATO? And I'm thinking primarily of Lithuania, whom you were prime minister twice. Do you still have confidence that is under the US nuclear umbrella?
Well, I said, that credibility is a very important factor in such organizations like NATO and common defense and so on, and we need to, and everybody should keep, its own credibility. So, well, we know, style of President Trump to demand big investments and so on. Also in Europe, a lot of countries are doing that, but not because of Trump, but because of Putin. So that is what we need to recognize. And definitely, bigger defense spending is very important. But also, it will be very important for us to understand what is the longer-term strategy of the United States, especially in their relations with Russia. Because now we hear also that, American side wants to establish good relations with Russia, which for me looks, how to say, I don't see the benefit in that, because good relations with aggressor really usually encourages aggressor to become even more aggressive. And also it can encourage, other other authoritarian aggressors to start to believe that they can do what they want, and they will not be stopped by the Western democracies.
And with AI, we can look at so much more than sales data. See that? Predictive analytics.
How long have you been doing this?
As long as we've been with BDO.
People who know BDO.
All righty. Predictive analytics is nothing but regression analysis. You take a lot of data, and if and you see correlations, and at certain times of the day or certain behaviors of the society, they purchase certain things. It's really easy. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the resveratrol. This will help to improve your mitochondrial health. It'll boost up energy levels. It soaks up free radicals, reduces stress in the cell, and it helps to get rid of cells that have stopped dividing and just sit there collecting garbage. I've taken resveratrol for decades. Please go to my store, get the resveratrol. It stacks really well with NAD+, ubiquinol, NAC, C60. To get the max benefits of resveratrol, stack it with another antioxidant. Now let's talk about NAC. NAC is a dual purpose supplement. It'll soak up free radicals because NAC boosts up your glutathione levels, and glutathione is a strong antioxidant. It's synergistic with C60. It'll help to detoxify your liver and your kidney. It'll help with the health of your lungs, and NAC helps to calm anxiety. Please go to my store, get the NAC, add this to your stack, really important. Now let's talk about healing your damaged DNA, cellular or mitochondrial DNA. NAD+ will boost up your energy levels and help to repair your mitochondrial DNA and your cellular DNA. And NAD+ helps to protect your neurons. Very important when you get older. It stacks well with ubiquinol, C60, NAC, and resveratrol. Ubiquinol is the most bioavailable form of CoQ10 that you can buy. Ubiquinol is an antioxidant, so it's going to soak up free radicals. It'll help the health of the mitochondria, so it's going to improve your energy levels, increase your ATP. And ubiquinol is very important to protect neurons. And like I said, when you get older, you need to protect your neurons. So take ubiquinol and the NAD+ and the resveratrol and the NAC and the C60 to protect your neurons and boost up your energy levels and soak up those free radicals. Please go to my store, get this ubiquinol. It's the most bioavailable form of CoQ10 that you can buy. Most CoQ10 that you purchase isn't ubiquinol, it's the lower form. But this one is the high bioavailable form. Please go to my store and get the very high quality supplements, stack them the way I'm telling you to, and you're going to see improvements in your health. So a great stack for you for soaking up free radicals and helping with your neurons and your neural health is ubiquinol, the NAC, the resveratrol, and the NAD+. And you're also helping to heal your DNA damage. So this is a great stack right here. Ubiquinol, NAC, resveratrol, and NAD+. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get this stack, improve your health, and protect your neurons. All right, let's go to what the officials are saying about the Long Island wildfires right now.
Thank you, Chief. Helping us, of course, Southampton Police, the Sheriff's Department, and our own Suffolk County Police. And I believe we have the Suffolk County Police Commissioner here. Commissioner,
Yes. Good morning. Thank you, sir. So we have 25 detectives that are working on trying to determine the origin of the fire. We have drones up assessing the area and again trying to figure out where this fire started. We also have our arson detectives going up in the helicopters, also trying to figure out how this all started. We're interviewing all 911 callers, and we're gonna get to the bottom of what happened. At this time, it's too early to tell whether or not this fire was started naturally or there's some nefarious origin. But we are gonna get to that, and we should have an answer within the next couple of days.
Thank you so much. We're gonna have the Southampton supervisor speak for a moment.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. We're just so grateful to the coordinated effort, speedy response of all the first responders who could, made such a difference. It was remarkable to see. And I just want to remind people that the burn ban, the recreational burn ban, is still in effect, as is the state of emergency. So please cooperate with those restrictions. Thank you.
Thank you. And on the other side of the line, the Brookhaven Supervisor, Dan Bennett. Thank you, Ed. And I want to say thank you.
We're listening here to officials over in Long Island as they continue to give an update here on the wildfires, one of those stories that we will continue to cover throughout the rest of this day. But we do want to pivot now and focus our efforts on another major story that we're going to be touching on for the next several hours. Thank you all for joining us here at Live Now from Fox on this Sunday, March 9th. I'm your host, Carl Lahada, and I'll be with you throughout the next 4 hours, continuing to commemorate the 60th anniversary of Bloody Sunday. That's where our programming is taking us now. I want to pull up some footage here as we are waiting for a march that is.
All right, so let's shift over to let's go to News Nation. They're talking about the New York brush fires in the morning. This was recorded about 4 hours
Again,
ago.
with that state of emergency in New York, dangerous brush fires creating a dramatic scene Saturday on the ground and in the air as smoke billowed for miles just east of New York City, Long Island. Dozens of departments coming together to battle the flames. Those efforts slowed by strong wind gusts that caused the fires to spread rapidly. And those winds are expected to continue through this afternoon, prompting fears from the governor of a multi-day event. News Nation's Caitlin Becker is live this morning on Long Island in the town of West Hampton Beach, where we're getting a first look at the fire's overnight damage. Good morning, Caitlin. Can you describe the scene? What are you seeing on the ground?
Hannah, you saw those giant plumes of smoke. Those pictures were incredible to see, really scary. This is what was underneath of it. This is what's left of this stretch of highway and forest. It looks almost like a haunted forest. Everything as far as I can see back here, is absolutely scorched. The ground, oddly enough, is frozen. You don't usually get wildfires or brush fires in the freezing cold. But look at how hot the temperature has gotten. What was a metal sign on the side of the road here is completely decimated. And now it's about containment. As I said, it's really cold out here and the wind has died down. But even though you don't see the plumes of smoke, it is permeating everywhere. I mean, we've been smelling it all morning. And just as I'm talking to you, a hot spot actually popped up over here. So you can actually see on the frozen ground, the smoke coming up from this area. Now we're keeping our distance from that, obviously, because we don't want to get too close because that area of the ground is really hot. But this is what firefighters are up against. Even in this area that is completely scorched, you're seeing hot spots. I mean, down there, I'm seeing even larger plumes of smoke in this area. So firefighters and first responders are still very much down here. As I said, it is about containment. Take a listen to what a fire official said is going on the ground in this area.
There's 90 departments involved in participating. 90 departments, that means EMS and fire on scene and working on that extinguishment as we speak.
Hannah, a state of emergency has been declared by Governor Kathy Hochul. She is sending down 100,095 masks to the area for local residents and deploying places like the National Park, people like the National Guard. Oddly enough, one of the bases just down the road had to be evacuated yesterday, but there are a lot of boots on the ground. So firefighters and first responders are fighting this from down here on the grounds and, of course, in the sky, dropping water along the area. There were 4 brush fires as of Saturday. As of today, 3 of those are out, and the one that is still raging is about 50% contained. However, Hannah, I do expect those numbers to change as the morning moves on.
Caitlin, it is Sunday. A lot of people are home, but are there concerns as people head into the work week with these blazes and more people on the roads? Is that a concern?
Absolutely. I mean, so far, there hasn't been many injuries. One firefighter suffered second-degree burns. That's really it. It's kind of a rural area where this had hit. There was only a few minor structure damage, just 2 structures so far, but the winds were really heavy yesterday, and they're likely to pick up today and into the week. So that is a concern. But on the ground, the firefighters and the first responders have been really, really cautious of closing down these highways and these areas to keep people away from anywhere where you're going to see things like hotspots or when these embers could potentially pick up with those very, very high winds. So that is something that they are looking out for here in West Hampton. The area of West Hampton has not been evacuated, but kind of they are bracing for that on the off chance that this does really pick up. And then just across the border there, over into New Jersey, there were brush fires kind of raging all week. Those have calmed down a bit, but again, these fires can jump very quickly when winds pick up. So we're hoping that we don't see that today, but it is very, very likely that we're going to see high winds just like we did on Saturday.
Really great job showing us the scene. Caitlin Becker live in Long Island for us this morning. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find News Nation on your television provider.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the omega-3. This will help with your cardiovascular health and also reduce the chances of clot formation. Omega-3 will reduce the red blood cells from sticking, so you're reducing clot formation. Not just that, omega-3 will bring down your LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. That's important to control your total cholesterol. With less LDL, that means you have less LDL that's being oxidized and you have less plaque buildup. So that's why you should be taking omega-3 every day. Also, omega-3 brings down systemic inflammation. So please take omega-3 every day and improve your cardiovascular health. Very important. Cardiovascular disease is rampant in the United States, even if you're asymptomatic. A lot of people don't realize you start cardiovascular disease when you're 16 years old, even though you don't know, even if you have a good lipid profile. And it doesn't show itself in higher blood pressure and plaque formation until later in life. But it starts with the yellow streaks and that inflammatory response when you're 16 years old. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Everyone should be taking omega-3. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. Take a look at my longevity cardiovascular box, and that will help to reduce the probability of building up new plaque. And if you take that protocol and you do proper diet and proper exercise, and you do that protocol for a year, you're going to notice that your blood flow is improved because you're reducing the buildup of the plaque that's already formed. You can reduce the plaque formation that has already built up and reduce the probability of further plaque by following this protocol. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Take a look at the cardiovascular box that I have. Get it, use it for a year, and you're going to notice that you have better blood flow. All right? Now, if you don't believe me, what you do is you go to your doctor, get a ultrasound of your carotid, or get a calcium screening. All right? And find out where your blockages are. What's the percentage of blockage? That's your baseline. Then take the cardiovascular box and take it for a year and do cardiovascular, do some cardio training, do a little bit of resistance training, do stretching and balancing exercises, improve your diet, drink filtered water, do that protocol in the longevity cardiovascular box, and then rescreen 1 year later, and you'll notice that you have less blockage. Pay attention or don't pay attention. But the bottom line is, my protocol works. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All right, let's go to France 24 here.
Commercial banker in England and Canada, an executive with Goldman Sachs. So his world has been one of banking and the corporate executive boardrooms. So this is be an interesting test for Mark Carney in the coming weeks. If we are in election campaign, he's going to be dealing with an opposition leader, conservative Pierre Poilievre, who has spent virtually his entire adult life in politics. The last time we saw this disconnect with the Liberals was when Michael Ignatieff became the Liberal leader, a historian who left academia to lead the Liberal Party. But in the 2011 election, he, for the first time, brought the Liberal Party to third status and lost his own seat. So, and Ignatieff never had held elected office. So Carney is in the same position. He will have to rely on his business acumen to deliver his message. And his focus, of course, as will be Pierre Poilievre's, will be the U.S., Canada's relationship with the U.S.
All right, Christopher, thank you very much indeed for those updates. We'll, of course, be keeping a very close eye on that throughout the evening. Next, Germany's conservative election winner Friedrich Merz is a step closer towards forming a new government. On Saturday, his CDU-CSU bloc and the centre-left Social Democrats, the SPD, announced they would soon finalize coalition negotiations. Merz clinched victory over outgoing Chancellor Olaf Scholz last month and has pledged to revive Europe's top economy and its armed forces with massive new spending. Morgan Ebb reports.
Germany's political limbo could soon be coming to an end. The biggest party, the Christian Democratic Union, will move into formal talks to form a coalition government with centre-left Social Democrats. It's a big milestone for the two parties.
We have essentially reached agreement on three major issues. One is migration, the second is finance, and the third is the labour market and the economy.
If the next step goes to plan and they do form a government, proposed legislation could lead to a big shake-up in German politics. The parties have agreed to loosen Germany's borrowing limits and invest hundreds of billions of euros in infrastructure and defence spending. This is in response to the Trump administration's decision to pull back when it comes to European security. But there was friction when it came to migration and concessions were made. The Social Democrats accepted proposals to turn back undocumented foreigners, including asylum seekers.
If we can manage to agree on such fundamental, important issues, if we manage to build bridges together, then we can also succeed elsewhere in this country.
Even if they do succeed to form a government, they still need a two-thirds majority in parliament to pass some of the legislation. This includes the far-right AfD party, which doubled its share of the vote to 28%. They have accused Merz of breaking election promises and surrendering to what they call the SPD's debt madness.
And that's it for this edition on Around the World. Coming up next on Talking Europe, France 24's James Andre talks to Jacques Attali, who's been whispering in the ears of French presidents for decades. He analyzes with France 24 the geopolitical storm hitting Europe and the prospect of war with Russia. Stay with us.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the C60. I have it in 3 different varieties. You can get it in the MCT coconut oil, you can get it in extra virgin olive oil, or in avocado oil. Now, C60 needs to be in a lipid or an oil to be able to absorb properly in the body. It absorbs the best on an empty stomach. If you work out, take it before your workout. It's going to soak up the free radicals during your workout, and you'll recover quicker. You'll notice that your recovery time after your workout is much quicker, and your body will heal. Now, you can get it in a 2-ounce, a 4-ounce, or an 8-ounce configuration. The higher the ounce configuration, the cheaper per ounce it is for you. So it behooves you to purchase the higher ounce configuration. But again, you can get it in the MCT coconut oil, avocado oil, or extra virgin olive oil. All right? But you take a teaspoon a day every day. Soak up those free radicals. C60 is the most potent antioxidant that you can buy. Now, when you're taking a teaspoon a day, it's going to soak up those free radicals. bring down the stress in the cell and bring down the stress in the tissues. So your organ systems are going to perform better, your tissues are going to perform better, your glands will perform better. And what you'll notice is that these different systems in your body will perform better because there's less stress in the tissues, less free radicals, and your ATP in your cells will be higher, so you'll have more energy. That's important for your immune system and your endocrine system and your other tissues. The tissue performance will improve. It also helps to improve your neurons. Why? Because you have a lot of mitochondria in your neurons. So if you can improve the health of your mitochondria, the health of the neuron will improve. So if you bring down the stress from free radicals in the neuron by taking the C60, you're going to have more ATP, healthier mitochondria, and more neurotransmitters to shoot off from the neuron, and your neuroplasticity will improve. So please take the C60. It's a dual purpose supplement. It's a very strong antioxidant. It's a very potent antioxidant. The reason why it's so potent is that the C60 molecule, you have 60 carbons that looks like a soccer ball or a buckyball, or fullerene is the technical term for it. And it will soak up those free radicals almost 1,000 times more than vitamin C. All right, one molecule of vitamin C can only soak up, neutralize one free radical. But this is almost 1,000 times stronger than vitamin C. Just one molecule of C60 compared to one molecule of vitamin C. So it's really important. This stacks really well with resveratrol, NAD+, ubiquinol, NAC, and clarity factor. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the C60, take a teaspoon a day, and what you're going to notice over time is your body is improving, you're getting healthier, you have more energy, and you're slowing down the aging process, and your immune system and your endocrine system is getting better. So please go to my store and get the C60. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. It behooves you to stack this in certain ways, like I've said. Please go to my store and get the C60. This is really important to take. Soak up those free radicals, slow down the aging process, have more vitality and longevity. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
Brighteon scientist that develop a lot of techniques and propaganda. Next steps will be to overrule the judges. The step after will be to put in jail Democrats, member of the parliament, or Congress, you see that. And then that's a full dictator, because the rule of law will not be sustained in the US. That's what is going to happen in the next months.
But what you're saying is chilling. But does that mean Emmanuel Macron addressed the French public and gave quite a powerful speech in a sense? He very clearly said that Russia was the enemy. He also clearly stated, in a sense, maybe he didn't say it completely openly, but that the United States were basically not going to be our allies anymore. So, do you believe he's right? What did you think?
I think he's right, totally right, and not only because I say that since 15 years, but we are alone and we should be ready to be alone. But I think he's right, and it's, the main problem we face is the problem of timing. We have to be ready now. And what has been launched with the European Council and all that is the development of a European Defence Act. But it may take 5 years to be ready, and we don't have 5 years. We need to be ready now, and we need to be ready now. At least we have to put in place a war economy where we work on free ships a day, 24 hours, 7 days a week, in order to reduce this timing, because this is a race. It's a race because the Russians, discovering that we are going to be ready, may take the window of opportunity to attack us now before we are ready, and without the American support. But Russian attack on Moldavia, on Romania, on Baltic states can happen any day. And we have to be prepared mentally and physically to that.
So Emmanuel Macron, once again, the French president, said that he would
eventually think of extending France's nuclear deterrence to the rest of European countries. Is this something, I mean, what is your feeling about this? Do you think this is a good idea first, and how would it work?
Well, when I was main advisor to François Mitterrand, we had a lengthy discussion with the German Chancellor about it, very confidential. Does French nuclear weapons protect Germany? And that was clearly established with the German Chancellor what should be thought about it, but was never been public. French nuclear weapons are French. The only finger on the button is a French president, whoever he is. And the simple question is where France consider the limits of his national vital interest.
Yes.
Is it the French border with Germany? Is it the German borders with Poland? It is the border Russian and the Polish borders with Russia. This has to stay ambiguous. The only thing that has not to stay ambiguous is the credibility of a French president pushing the button, and that is fundamental.
So we are seeing Europe working, aligning. We saw this summit on the 6th of March. First of all, do you feel that Europe is up to the task, that they are doing what is required at this stage?
Yes, but not everything has been yet announced. One, we should agree that Ukraine is part of European defense, as well as UK. We need both, and they are both essential. If UK can get rid of an American link and prevent them to use their weapons whenever they want. But they are part. Ukraine is fundamental in European defense because we have a wonderful army, unfortunately, and they know what kind of weapons we need. And that's the second point. We don't know yet in this what has been announced what kind of weapons we are going to develop. And these weapons have to be ready for next war, not what the European defense industry in Europe want the government to buy. It has to be, and third, we don't have, we need a czar of the European defense, someone really in charge of it. With the countries that are interested, not everyone, it has to be very pragmatic. And third, we have to say we must be ready in 12 months, not in 5 years.
But when it comes to these 800 billion euros that Ursula von der Leyen is talking about, I mean, this is going to be new debt in a sense. This is, you know, the idea is to bend the rules of the European Union, the Stability Pact. Is this not going to cost the European citizens a fortune? Macron says he won't need to raise the taxes.
We can do that without raising taxes, and we can do that through borrowing, because this is investment. In security is investment, and unfortunately, defense industry produce growth. People cannot like it, but it's not like we put that the money in a hole. We put that in jobs, technology, research, industrial plants, a lot of things that are good for growth. Economy of defense create growth. And by the way, it's the way the American economy has been organized since 1942 and after.
So do you believe this is an opportunity economically?
Of course, it's a political and economic opportunity.
So it's not bad news, as far as it is, but
well, when you face a challenge, either you surrender or you are stronger. That's up to us.
So we're talking money at the moment, there's 200 billion euros worth of frozen Russian assets. Some people here in France and across Europe are saying we should seize that money, we should take it to use to finance this defense effort. What is your feeling?
I don't think it should be done now, because, you know, euro is still a fragile currency. And as long as the central bank say that we need to respect the rule of law and these assets are under rule of law and we should not seize them, I think it's fair, because anything that can jeopardize the strength and the credibility of a euro, which will be good from the American point of view, because they want to get rid of the euro as well as they want to get rid of the European Union, is not to be done.
You know the Russians, you worked with them for decades. I mean, you remember that in 1991, you were the architect of Mikhail Gorbachev's visit to the G7 in the UK. Are they our enemies?
No. My dream was and still is that Russia join as a full member of the European Union. I know it's a dream, but I'm sure it may happen. Russian culture is European, as well as Turkey, by the way. I do think that both should have their own seat for within the European Union. They must be in. And it will happen when they, I hope, not after a catastrophe. And then Russia is not an enemy. It happens that Russia, as well as US, is led by dictators that need strength to maintain their own power, and we should do their best to go through this dark moment.
Well, Jacques Attali, thank you very much for being with us and for your insight. So you please stay with us for the second part of Talking Europe. We'll be going to Brussels to ask European MPs where Europe stands when it comes to women's rights. It's International Women's Day, and indeed we'll see if Europe is indeed a champion for women's rights, but also what remains to be done.
All right, I want to switch over to Fox News. They interviewed Trump. This was posted 20 minutes ago.
Let me go back to what happened in the Oval Office the other day. I call it a smackdown of Zelensky. It looked really rough, but then again, at the end of the day, you may have your deal back. So is that all the art of the deal? What specifically ticked you off?
Well, you know, he was able to, it was like taking candy from a baby, what he did. He's a smart guy, and he's a tough guy. And he took money out of this country under Biden like candy from a baby. It was so easy with that same attitude. And I just don't think he's grateful. We gave him, in my opinion, $350 billion. Europe is in for $100 billion. We gave him $350 billion, and he's talking about the fact that they have fought and there's a bravery because somebody has to use the weapons. But without those weapons, don't forget, I was the one that gave him the javelins that was able to knock down all the tanks. Obama gave nothing. Look, if I were president, that would have never happened. You wouldn't have had Russia going into Ukraine. You wouldn't have had the whole situation with Hamas and October 7th would have never happened because Iran was broke. They had no money. They weren't giving it to Hamas or Hezbollah or anybody else. You would have never had the worst evacuation anyone's ever seen, which is Afghanistan, which was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country. And you know what else you wouldn't have had? You wouldn't have had inflation. We had record-setting inflation under Biden. It was a killer.
You may
It's
get
one
it
of the
again.
reasons I won the election.
But you may get it again with these tariffs, right? I mean, one CEO said to me, my input costs had already started to go up. I'm going to have to raise prices.
In the meantime, guess what? Interest rates are down for the last 3-4 days at good levels. I mean, you know, when you add interest rates, you're talking about it's gone down. I've been saying, let's get interest rates down. You know, nobody ever gets rich when the interest rates are high because people can't borrow money. Interest rates are going down. You know what else is going down? What have I been trying to get down? Energy. Energy's going down. I'd love to see energy go down. You know, energy is really what caused it. They screwed up my energy. I had the most energy.
Interest rates go down for a multitude of reasons. One, inflation expectations go down. So that would mean that the Federal Reserve isn't pumping too much hot money into the economy. Another way interest rates can go down is that there's a recession. And so people get out of equities and buy treasuries, and the treasury yields go down. Or you could have let's see, you have the treasury yields going down, you have the Federal Reserve affecting the federal funds rate, or the spending of Congress, its deficit spending would go down. All those would bring down interest rates. Now, it's important to understand, it's not just the Federal Reserve. It's also how markets have expectation with that inflation and how they buy into the treasury market or sell off in the treasury market. And what's going on in Congress? How's the government spending? So it's not just the Federal Reserve. Now, the way he says it makes it sound like it's just the Federal Reserve. Now, if it's just the Federal Reserve, it's going to be inflationary if the Federal Reserve continues to cut. If the job market is below natural unemployment of 5% and inflation is above 2%. If the Federal Reserve cuts under that condition, it will be inflationary unless there is a rapid decline in the stock market and a surge of purchasing treasuries, and the federal government decides to, or the government decides to stop spending, stop deficit spending. But what's the chances of that happening right now? So he was really talking about the Federal Reserve cutting rates, which is going to be inflationary. The Federal Reserve cutting rates is going to be more inflationary than the tariffs, with the assumption that unemployment rate is below 5% and inflation is above the 2% target.
And they screwed it up. Then they went back to it. It was going through the roof. They went back to some drilling, but it was gone. It was hopeless. It was lost. But energy's gone down and interest rates have gone up over the last week. That's a big thing. I love that.
Do you expect Zelensky to come back? Do you expect to do that rare earth minerals deal?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're gonna.
Are you sure there's the content that you think there is there? Because some people were questioning if in fact there is the, the titanium and the lithium, all those battery, the rare earth minerals. Do you think it is rich with those
Well,
things?
I do. I mean, I've had it checked.
Okay.
But it's very valuable. But with all that being said, Biden should have never put up $350 billion. He should have equalized with Europe. All he had to do is say, you got to stay even with us. They're in for 100, we're in for 350. How does that, and we have an ocean in between us, right? We're not in the danger that they are. They are in much greater danger, if you call it danger. He should have never done that. You know, the other thing with Europe that bothers me? They've given Russia more money by far for buying their oil than they put into Ukraine. So they're paying all this money to Russia, and we're in there for $350 billion. Biden should have never done that.
I spoke with the president of Poland the other day. President Duda has great respect for you. Yeah. And I said to him, what if the U.S. walks away and stays away? Here's what he said. Without the United States, do you believe that Europe is capable of offering meaningful security to Ukraine?
I would like to believe it, but experience to date shows that this has not been the case. The entire history so far of the last 3 years of the war shows that without American support, Ukraine will not survive.
Are you comfortable with that? The fact that you walked away and Ukraine may not survive?
Well, it may not survive anyway, but, we have some weaknesses with Russia. It takes two. Look, it was not going to happen, that war, and it happened. So now we're stuck with this mess. Think of what he stuck me with. Open borders where we have 21 million people came into our country, many of whom should not be here. Many are criminals. Many are criminals. Many murderers, drug dealers, drug lords. We got that. We have the whole mess with Israel on October 7th. We have all of the ramifications from the worst and dumbest withdrawal in history.
Both Ukraine and Israel were both attacked by aggressors. Is America treating both countries similarly? Are they treating the aggressors similarly?
I think so. Look,
are you favoring one over the other?
They're very different places. Okay, very, very different. You're talking about different level. You're talking about different parts of the world. The Middle East has been under attack forever. You look, when wasn't it under attack? And then we came along and did the Abraham Accords, which was unheard of.
Have you been as tough on Russia as you've been on Hamas? I mean, what do you want to say to
Well, I've been much tougher because I haven't done to Hamas. That's been Israel that has to do to Hamas. But Israel does tell me what's going on. I think I've been very tough to Russia. Tougher than anybody's ever been to Russia, if you think about it. First of all, we had the Russia hoax, which was a very bad thing. Could have led to a war. And that was started by Schiff and all these lowlifes.
I know.
They're total lowlifes. And it was a fake deal, the 51 intelligence agencies. I took all their passes away. They can't participate anymore. These guys know it came from Hunter Biden's laptop from hell, which came from his bathroom and or his bedroom, okay? Not a pretty sight. But this was a Hunter Biden thing. They said it was from Russia. No, I've been very tough. Remember this, I'm the one that stopped the Russian pipeline, Nord Stream 2. I stopped it. Biden came in and he approved it. I'm the one that put sanctions on Russia. I'm the one that gave the javelins against Russia. No, I've been very tough, but I got along well with Putin. And because I got along well, they say, he's so, nobody's ever been, Putin would be the first to say it. Nobody's been tougher than Trump. And Biden hasn't been tough. Biden's done nothing. He was a weak, pathetic man.
So is there anything else you want to say to the critics who say you chose a side in the Ukraine-Russia story, and that's Russia? Because, you called Zelensky a dictator and you had to fight.
Blah, 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 blah. You know what? Stop the war. We'll all be better off. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the Myotrol. Myotrol has flavonoids, lignans, and polyphenols to help with the gene expression to build muscle and to maintain muscle. When you turn 40 years of age, you will start to atrophy muscle. It's going to be harder to gain muscle and to maintain it. So you have to do resistance training and take supplements that will help with the gene expression and help with your mitochondrial health to build muscle and maintain muscle. This stacks really well with Gladiator Barley. Gladiator Barley is a high density protein that will also bring down inflammation, soak up free radicals through superoxide dismutase, and help build strength and detoxify your body. Take a full scoop of this. This is the building blocks to build the muscle after your workout, your resistance training workout, and Myotrol helps with the gene expression to build the muscle. So this is a great stack. If you're 40 years of age, you should be doing this with resistance training to build muscle. But if you can be an athlete, younger or older, and you will gain benefits in your sport by taking Myotrol and Gladiator Barley. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, reduce that atrophy of your muscles and take the Myotrol. Now, a lot of people don't realize, you know what? Don't just do those simple resistance training, weight lifts, but also focus on your back muscles. Because what you'll notice is that your posture will improve. And when you get older and you don't support your back muscles, your spine will start to shrink in height and it will start to compress and it'll start to curve and you'll curve forward. So a lot of people that are older in their geriatric years, they're curved forward, they're slunched down, their height is lower, and they're not getting as much blood flow. Because when you're crunched over, your blood flow is impeded, so you're not getting enough blood flow, and you're also not getting the proper flow for your lymph, which is the flow of into your lymph nodes, and that helps with your immune system. So when you're crunched over, all right, it's because your back muscles aren't strong enough to improve the posture, all right? And then eventually your bones start to become more brittle. You start to impede your blood flow and your lymph flow. So by improving your back muscles, improves a lot of things. Your bone density, your posture, your lymph flow, your blood flow. So when you get older, don't just work on your biceps and your triceps, also work on your back muscles. All right, really important. That's part of an anti-aging holistic approach. So I just gave you some great advice. Please go to my store, get the Myotrol, activate that gene expression to build muscle. Please go to my store, use discount 5 and get $5 off. Again, Myotrol stacks really well with Gladiator Barley, and I'll talk about Gladiator Barley shortly.
has been tougher on Russia than Donald Trump. Nobody. And they know that. They know that. Just look at the things I just told you. The pipeline, I stopped it. The biggest job they've ever done was the pipeline, Nord Stream 2. Nobody ever heard of it until I came along. They were building it happily. They were going to supply Germany and everybody else all over Europe. And what did I do? I stopped it. The biggest economic job they've ever had, I stopped it. Biden got in. On the second day, he approved it. He said, let it go forward. It was totally stopped. Just that one thing alone tells you everything. No, I was stopped. At the same time, I got along with Putin. I got along with Kim Jong-un. I got along with President Xi. But nobody was tougher, like on China, than I was.
And then there are reports now that Russia says it will help the United States negotiate a nuclear deal with Iran. What kind of a deal with Iran do you want to do? You said they cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Yeah. Well, there are two ways Iran can be handled, militarily or you make a deal. I would prefer to make a deal because I'm not looking to hurt Iran. They're great people. I know so many Iranians from this country.
Well, not the leadership.
No, not the leadership.
The
No,
people.
they're very evil people. No, but the people of Iran are great people. But they had a tough regime, and they'd meet and they'd be shot in the streets. I mean, it was a tough deal. But I would rather negotiate a deal. I'm not sure that everybody agrees with me, but we can make a deal that would be just as good as if you won militarily. But the time is happening now. The time is coming up. Something's going to happen one way or the other. I hope that Iran, and I've written them a letter saying, I hope you're going to negotiate, because if we have to go in militarily, it's going to be a terrible thing for them.
You wrote a letter to the Khomeini?
Yes.
When did you send the letter?
Yesterday.
And you said you better negotiate, or we want you to
I didn't say
negotiate?
you better. I said, I hope you're going to negotiate, because it's going to be a lot better for Iran. And I think they want to get that letter. The other alternative is we have to do something, because you can't let them have a nuclear weapon.
You said you wanted to do the Golden Dome. You've got a lot of ideas for America. But then earlier you said you wanted to cut $1 trillion in defense spending,
I
right?
didn't say I was.
You did not get,
I
so
never
I'm like, which is it? Are you cutting defense spending, or are you
I said
building us up?
I never said defense.
Okay, because I think you were talking about denuclearization, and
Correct.
that's where the cutting of the spending
Oh, okay.
came in.
I never said cut. No, it's not in these days. I'd love to cut defense spending, but not now. Because you have China, you have Russia,
Yeah,
you have a
that's
lot of
easy.
problems out there. No.
In fact,
No,
this-
what I have said is we spend a lot of money on nuclear missiles, nuclear weapons. The level of destruction is beyond anything you can even imagine. It's just bad that everybody has to spend all this money on something that if it's used, it's probably the end of the world.
Wow. No, what to say to that?
You know, when I listen to these climate lunatics and they talk about global warming, and they say the ocean's going to rise 1/8 of an inch in the next 300 years, and nobody ever talks about nuclear weapons or some of the other things, but the nuclear weapons in particular right now. And they talk about the climate, and they talk about the dangers of the climate, but they don't talk about the dangers of a nuclear weapon, which could happen tomorrow. They say in 300 years, I watched Biden for years say the existential threat. He loved the term existential threat.
Well,
Our greatest existential threat is from the climate. I said, no. The greatest is sitting in shells in various countries called nuclear weapons that are big monsters that can blow your heads off for miles and
That's
miles.
absolutely true. We have been asleep, comfortably numb from the fact that at any given day, we could be in a nuclear holocaust. We have this Damocles over our heads, and we allow our national security state to be this way. And if it does happen, these powerful people in government and at the Pentagon will be protected for continuity of government, and they don't care about you. But yet they used your taxpayer dollars and destroyed your life in the process. No, nuclear weapons is the most existential threat that we have.
Miles. And they never mention that.
Yeah, because bleeding heart liberals, all they care about are the trees, and they don't really pay attention to the armaments that have been built up over the decades. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the clarity factor. This will help you to get rid of that brain fog. It'll allow you to concentrate at work or in school. If you're retired, this will help you to concentrate throughout your day. It's a holistic approach. Take this supplement, but also learn new things with proper diet and exercise and training your mind on new subjects, reading and writing and talking to people. You're going to improve your neuroplasticity. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the clarity factor. It's something that I take. If you're in school or you're at work, then you have to concentrate a lot. You have a high cognitive work function. Taking clarity factor will help you. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the clarity factor. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off. All right, that was Trump talking about, I think the biggest threat that we have is nuclear weapons, that's for sure. I mean, it is unacceptable that we have allowed nuclear weapons to be over our heads like this for so many decades. And it's because we're comfortably numb. We focus on the bread and circus. We focus on the little stuff, but we don't focus on the big stuff. Because the probability of a nuclear exchange is low, but if it does happen, it is 100% done. Society done, gone. And it doesn't take that much time. Low probability event, but extreme impact. And we allow it to happen. But we'll complain about, other things that are, we'll complain about January 6th, we'll complain about the government, we'll complain about all this other bullshit, but not de-escalate nuclear weapons. We should have never had the national security state grow the nuclear stockpile that we have. Should have never happened. And where are the ultra liberals on this one? Oh, they don't care. Or they're not focused on it. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean there isn't an existential threat. All right. This is just so crazy. I'm going to go to Times Radio here. And this was done 3 days ago. And it looks like they're talking about James Carville warns the U.S. is in peril. So obviously it's anti-Trump. Let's see what they have to say.
Open door for you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Why would you do things that are intentionally hurting the country? And I'm sorry, it's not over the top to surmise what might be motivating him is he just doesn't like the country. And I don't think that's over the top at all.
Welcome to Bible Times Radio.
He goes all the way back to 1980, literally 1980, and Barbara Walters is interviewing him in one of his buildings in Manhattan, and he basically says that countries are ripping us off, and we need to push back to make America better, to make America more prosperous. We need to start thinking locally, not globally. All right. So he was thinking localization while globalization was starting to take hold by Jack Welch and all the fucking MBAs that were coming out of the Ivy Leagues in the 1980s. Just roll the tape. Barbara Walters was the one that was interviewing him. And then, you had Oprah interviewing, and he's been saying the same thing since the 1980s. It's very pro-America. How can Carville, I don't know, maybe because of his age, or maybe because he's a jarhead, because he used to be a Marine, he doesn't have any brain cells anymore. I don't know what the hell's wrong with James Carville, but it doesn't look like he's using any common sense or any logic.
Who was the lead strategist in Bill Clinton's campaign in 1992 and has been since and before that one of the leading voices in discussions of political strategy in the United States. James, welcome to you.
Exactly.
And he was such a strategic paragon that he told the American public that Harris was going to win and that Trump was going to, was going to lose the election. And that she had the momentum and the better policy. But Harris was a bumbling idiot.
Now, James,
here in a couple of weeks.
look forward to seeing you. Join us in the studio, James. There's an open door for you.
Absolutely, thank you. I think I'm gonna have lunch at Scott's,
We'll have a bunch of scotch for you too, whatever it is. I want to ask you this, James. I said earlier that it was astounding to see, first of all, just less than 48 hours ago, the news that Donald Trump had cut off arms supplies to Ukraine. Now we have the news that intelligence has been cut off to arms. The cutting arms would weaken Ukraine in the space of weeks. Cutting intelligence threatens Ukraine now. I'm talking to a Ukrainian politician a moment ago telling me this is going to cost Ukrainian lives. I said I was shocked. James, are you shocked?
No. In terms of what we think of as transatlantic alliances, in terms of what we think about freedom and, free trade, free travel, all the things that we're going to take for granted, this is catastrophic. There's no other way to. I wish I could give you a more optimistic assessment, but the gloomiest assessment.
Well, Carvel, thanks for asking Dr. Cottrell. But the reality of the situation is ever since the fall of the Berlin Wall, the American strategy has been poking the bear because we were a monopolar country that had hubris. We had some success during the Desert Storm, the Iraq War, and George Bush Sr. and the neocons had hubris, and they didn't integrate Russia properly. They wanted to fleece Russia with its resources. But Russia pushed back. And because of that hubris and that monopolar world during that time period, they expanded NATO and created Putin. Their actions created a Putin figure. So the blame is at the intelligentsia that's working and consulting for the CFR, for CSIS, the screw-ups by the CIA. Where's the weapons of mass destruction post 9/11? They're still not around. Where are they? They were so sure that they were there, but they're not. But he's going to, this globalization, this free trade and free travel and all this stuff is so important. What's more important is protecting jobs and our manufacturing prowess, just in case there's a war, especially in the Asian theater. You think we're going to be able to depend on foreign manufacturers for our war effort? Do you think that is prudent for a war in Asia between the United States and the CCP? Or do you think that manufacturing in the United States is a smart idea? What about shipbuilding? Not just for our Navy, but why don't we build the ships that ship all the cargo around instead of Greece? Why is the shipbuilding somewhere else in the world while we could be the biggest shipbuilder in the world? Why? Why can't we have that? See, the problem with these liberals is that they've been sucking on the tit of globalization for so long that they don't realize that the middle class has been screwed. The Democrats have moved away from the middle class, and it's the wine and cheese Democrats that they support. They don't support the beer drinking blue collar worker anymore. Wake up! But they still want you to vote in a block. They want the union workers to vote in a block. They want the blacks to vote in a block. They want the Latinos to vote in a block for the Democratic Party. Stay on your urban plantation. Don't question the authority of the Democratic Party or they'll go after you. That's what Carville represents. Clown.
Right. Now, look, I mean, we saw, didn't we? We saw Donald Trump echoing Vladimir Putin's lies and lies. Last week, we saw America voting with Russia at the United Nations, and now we see this. Now, knowing the political climate in America, what kind of effect is this going to have on the president's support, first of all, among Republicans in Washington and in the country? That's if it will have an effect.
Well, I think it will, right?
But most of the Republican Party, other than the rhinos, want the war to end in Ukraine. And a really good strategy would be bring Russia into the orbit economically with the United States so we can help Russia rebuild its economy. And guess what? Having a good partner with Russia allows for a 2 or 3 front war against the CCP. Because if we align ourselves with India and we align ourselves with Russia, we have a better chance of winning a war against the CCP. Come on, Carville. You can, I know you have at least 2 brain cells to figure this one out.
The problem is he's got another 3 years and 10 months left in office. More than that. I think that the big market dates in American politics are April 1st, Wisconsin Supreme Court, and early November when Virginia and New Jersey go to post. I suspect the Democrats will win all of those and suspect they'll win the House back.
Yeah. And he was so positive that there was going to be a blue wave in the House, in the Senate, and at the executive branch under Harris. Didn't happen. What's really going to happen is this. It's America first. We're back in business, and the Republican Party is going to take charge. You know why? Because the fucking ultra liberals have been eating their own tail, and they've been trying to defend policies that are indefensible. How can you defend wasteful spending of American taxpayer dollars on condoms to the Taliban? Either he has kind of declined, or he literally is lying to himself. It doesn't even seem that he even believes what he's saying.
26, but in the meantime, we have the United States has decided that it wants to hang out with North Korea, Russia, and Belarus. And we've turned our back on South Korea, Japan, New Zealand, Australia.
All right, let's get back to what was happening with the Clintons. I know this for a fact because my brother was in the fucking military when this was happening under Clinton. All right, when Kim Jong-il was illin, all right, and he was shooting rockets and he was building up a potential nuclear arsenal. There was a potentiality of the U.S. Army invading North Korea. They were put on red alert. I know this for a fact that this took place under Clinton's administration. All right, it happened 2 or 3 times. Now the thing is this: what happened was the Clinton administration backed down and decided not to strike because they were afraid. And once again, you got a pussy president that doesn't get the job done and kicks the can down the road, and someone else has to pick up the pieces. So if you knocked out Kim Jong-il at the time during the Clinton administration, while this motherfucker was consulting Clinton, we wouldn't have the problem that we have today with North Korea. They'd actually be integrated probably with South Korea already. But instead, they were wussies and decided not to act. So now, because they have more capability with missile technology and nuclear capability, the problem is bigger. That's the whole point of kicking the can down the road where it gets worse. Now, the idea is to try to de-escalate instead of de-escalate. And if somehow, some way, you can de-escalate this
Damocles of nuclear weapons over our heads, everyone's going to benefit. So what is his position? His position is to not try to de-escalate. It was under the Clinton administration that got us to this point because they failed to react to Kim Jong-il. Now, I know that this for a fact this happened because my brother was in the military while this was happening. This motherfucker is an asshole.
The EU, United Kingdom, Brazil, Canada. Okay, it is hard. It would be hard for anybody who listens to this show to overestimate how catastrophic this is to people who think as we do.
Yeah.
Yeah. How catastrophic it is for the way we think, because we're globalists and transnational capitalists, and we are wine and cheese Democrats now that don't care about the blue collar worker as long as they vote. As long as they vote in a block. If their union head tells them to vote a certain way, they better vote that way. Because we bought and paid for that union head. I'm telling you, the serpent of Satan and its attachment to the negative soul root of Esau is manifested in Carvel.
Rage, as it were, is spread. How much movement has there been in the approval ratings of the president and his administration since the inauguration, with all the upheaval that has come since then?
Well, there's been some deterioration, but compared to where other people were, other presidents were at a comparable time, it's really unimpressive.
Right.
Usually people are not even 2 months into the administration are clocking in 60, 65%. These, we can go 48. All right. But it's going to continue to decline. These town halls are totally organic. They mean something. And honestly, I think, if anything, Poland is a little bit of a lagging indicator. But there's a lot of work to be done. And how we approach this and where we choose our ground are going to really, really be important. But man, I love going to Ireland. Routh is there. London 2 times a year. I like to go, like anybody else. I like to go to the European continent.
See what I mean? It's about transnational capitalists. They have this view of the world as it's just one world kind of thing, and they don't have any affinity to country. This guy used to be a fucking Marine. Where the hell is his balls? Did he get neutered? God, spaded or whatever it is? I mean, what the fuck?
And it just breaks my heart. And I think it's the honest truth. I think he does not like the United States. He does not like Western democracies. He thinks that we're inefficient, that we're too tolerant, that we let too many people in that he doesn't approve of. He thinks the women in the West are...
Wait. They're here illegally. There's a law by Congress that states you need to come to this country through the right way. If you don't, it's called you're an illegal alien. Period. Full stop. Independent of what Trump thinks. They don't want to be law-abiding because globalists don't want borders. Globalists want to weaken countries. You weaken countries by weakening the currency. You weaken countries by weakening the borders. Carvel, ex-Marine, wants globalism. Now, does that sound like America First policy? Jarhead? No.
I think the man genuinely does not like European or traditional American values, the way that we look at the world. And to not come to grips with that and understand that, I think is to miss what's going on right now.
And yet, James, in the US presidential election, not that long ago, just back in November, President Trump and his party, he won the majority of the American vote. It was a very narrow margin, I know, but he got a majority. And he took the Senate, he took the House, he took, well, there's also, by the way,
Not only did he take it, it went against Carvel's prediction. Now, I know the jarhead only has 2 neurons left, but at least, please, James Carvel, use those 2 neurons and use some logic. Just 2. I know it's going to be a little hard. It may take a little bit of time, but you can do it. You can do it. Use some logic.
Look, the House, actually, we kind of picked up a seat, if you will. But we lost by 1.5 points, and I would point out the fact that we've had to play.
Here's the point of fact, Carvel. Your politic, your party, fucking sucks. Donkey balls. That's the truth.
World Cup without selling the best goalkeeper. All right, so we lost by 1.5 points. I'm not worried about that we have a lot of talent. I'm worried about to 2028. I'm worried about getting to 2028.
Okay, look, I heard you say a couple of days ago on air, which is one reason I was really keen to talk to you today. You suggested that the Trump administration may be on the verge of collapse in the space of weeks. So seen from here, I see
collapse, and if anything, he's getting more. He's gaining momentum. He has done more in the short amount of time that he has been in his second term than all of the presidency of Biden. And he's trying to unravel a lot of this transnational capitalist intertwining that has taken place for 35 years and the poor decisions when it came to our military prowess under the Biden administration, under the Obama administration. You know, you got to remember, Trump, even though he was in office in his first term for 4 years, he didn't really get as much done as he wanted to because of what happened with COVID. All right, it really truncated his presidency for his first term. So he wasn't able to unravel as much as he wanted to of the Obama administration. And I'm telling you, our presidents, including Republicans, have kicked the can down the road to the point where we need to figure this out quickly, because we have an enemy that's rising in Asia, aka the CCP, and we have had a very poor articulated policy with our allies in Asia, especially with Taiwan. Now, Trump has been more forceful and said that we're going to build up this alliance and we're going to protect Taiwan. And this BS with 2 countries, 1 system crap is done. And that Taiwan is its own. But it's going to have to fight. And the United States is going to have to support. That is worth fighting for. Not this bullshit in Ukraine. This bullshit in Ukraine is just hubris with this old Cold War mentality. The Soviet Union's gone. It's been gone since Gorbachev. The problem is that our intelligentsia still has a Cold War mentality. That's where the mistake happened with Europe. Now let's see the 2 neuron brain James Carville, see what he has to say.
So tell me, what did you mean by that?
Okay, great. Well, when you think of collapse in a parliamentary system, you think there's something different. When you say it's going to collapse, you're talking about they're going to have to call a new election.
No, sure.
Of course, it's collapsing right now. I mean, first of all, he is
Really?
at a historical low of any president at this point in his presidency. Secondly, the economic news coming out, not just in the market, okay, but beyond that, the unemployment claims, the regular GDP growth.
This is all designed, Carvel. I sit down. I know it's going to take a little while for you to understand, right? But the thing is that Carvel, you gotta understand, Carvel, you gotta understand that the economy is going through a series of milestones for a rally near the end of the year. And if you're smart, you're actually going to buy into this, because what's going to happen is that they front load the tariffs. It may or may not be inflationary. They don't know. And what's going to happen is there's negotiations that will take place, and it'll ease the tension of the tariffs, which will be market positive. And guess what? You are buying into a lower market, the S&P 500. So you're gobbling up shares. And then they push the tax reduction bill at the end of the year. And that's going to be a super rally. And it's going to go into 2026. And it's going to be super positive for it'll be super positive for the Republican Party and negative for the Democratic Party. So when you have midterm elections, guess what? You're actually going to have more seats for the Republican Party, not for the Democrats. Genius plan. You know, he's wearing LSU football, Tigers, right? Probably, I think he went to LSU. And there's nothing wrong with supporting your school. All right, I get that. All right, but in football, you may be losing during the quarter, but that doesn't mean you're going to lose the game. All right. Now, on the surface, it looks like tariffs will be hurting the average citizen because of increased prices. In the long run, it's actually going to bring back jobs. And in many cases, it's going to allow for parity of trade. Fair trade, not free trade, fair trade, reciprocal trade. That's a win-win for everybody. And it reduces this labor arbitrage that the globalists have been doing for the last 35 years. That's been hurting blue-collar workers. You do know that, Carvel, don't you? I mean, since you only have 2 brain cells, you should know that. See, what it is that he's a well-known person in the Democratic Party, and he's trying to spin some logic and get you to believe in something that I don't even think he believes. It's almost like they're trying to sell you something. It's like selling a used car, saying it's so great, and they know that there's something wrong with it. They know it's a lemon. That's the Democratic Party right here. And your sales guy is James Carville, wearing an LSU jersey.
Really not that good. We're starting to see real softening. Walmart is warning of a softening of the computer. Target just issued another warning today. This really happened in the United States. So I know this is afternoon talk time, but this actually
the thing is, just look at this picture here. All right, let me blow this up a little bit so you get to see it. All right. You have this jarhead with 2 brain cells that represents the Democratic Party. And remember what I said? They represent now the wine and cheese party and not the blue collar party. And he has a painting in the background, all right, that has kind of a modern motif to it. That painting looks expensive. Now, I don't go to auctions for modern art, all right? But I suspect with his wealth that painting's at least $250,000, at least. And it just so happens to have a pomegranate
on the table and a wine bottle. Now, do you think your average Joe Blow that's working on, as a blue collar worker is buying a $250,000 painting or more? See the problem? Do you now see the problem? Who really represents big business? Who really represents big lobbying groups? Who really represents the multinational corporations? Do you think it's Trump, or do you really think it's the Democratic Party?
Check me out. The Secretary of Agriculture was asked about the high cost of eggs. Remember, Trump famously ran that he was going to get the cost of eggs down. He's done no such thing. And I answered, well, people should raise their own chickens in a backyard. Right. That's right. You heard me correctly and you heard me accurately. When asked about the high cost of eggs, the Secretary of Agriculture of the United States of America responded, maybe people need to raise chickens in their backyard. That happened.
Right. I just wonder what the fallout from that will be with the American public.
What's wrong with being self-sufficient? I interpret that as being self-sufficient. If I had the means to do that, I would do that. It's hard to do that in New York City. Where's the space to raise your chickens? What, underneath your bed? But the problem is that, but in suburb or rural America, a lot of people do that. And it's a means of being self-sufficient. So the way I take that was be self-sufficient if you can. What is Carvel representing? Cargill? Is Carvel representing Cargill? Big ag? Big farm? Big agriculture? And the lobbying group from there? People need to wake up. Most of these farms that we have, they've been bought out by conglomerates. Does that what it, and they are big lobbying groups that are supporting people like him and their policies.
Pretty much half the public will say, good idea, I'll go and buy a chicken, or at least it will sound reasonable to them.
I don't think so. Look, it takes a while for things to accumulate. But there's, it's famous that out of shit.
Right. So you have Carvel, representing Cargill, and you have Carvel demonizing people that want to be self-sufficient. Meanwhile, in the back on the wall, there's at least a $250,000 painting. Wine and cheese Democrat, you have to worry about.
Yeah, I mean,
Mary Antoinette, famous.
Yeah.
Look, James, let me ask you this. When I look at the opposition in Washington, I mean, seeing from here, the Democrats, the Democratic Party and their people in the House and the Senate, they seem almost to be bystanders, spectators with all that's going on. Is that fair?
Right. No, it's not fair. If anything, when they try things, it backfires. The last night was a good example. Al Green walking out of his cane or putting those.
It was disrespectful for what Representative Al Green did during the speech in the joint session of Congress with Trump. That was disrespecting the guest. And what we have been seeing with our politics in the United States is becoming polarized. And both sides are at fault. But I'll tell you, the Democratic Party is like out of control. They're rebel rousers. Look at every time that a Republican nominee for the Supreme Court is going through confirmation. You got all these crazy ultra liberals threatening their family or protesting at their house or coming up with crap that's totally a lie. You don't see any of that happening when it's the other side, where it's the Democrat president nominating
a liberal potential justice. That doesn't happen. But it happens when a Republican has a nominee going through confirmation, because the crazy ultra liberals, it's all about protesting. It's all about creating havoc. They're not about rule of law. They want top-down government. They want ultra socialism / communism. That's their mentality.
Paddles up like it's an auction. This is my fundamental belief that I have never seen my country in 80 years at greater peril than it is right now, today, as we speak. And I'm urging the Democratic opposition to act like it, to be very determined, all right, very strategic. Don't go in front of buildings and scream and yell and hold up things, and assert yourself with the limited power you have, and do it in a dignified way, because people are scared. They're really afraid.
You know, the reality of the situation is what the Democratic Party is selling, no one wants to buy. So you're going to lose in the midterm election, assuming things evolve the way I said they probably will evolve. The ultra-liberal agenda is eating itself. They don't have a logical foundation to stand on. And to brain cell James Carville, who represents Cargill, wants to believe some sort of alternative reality.
You know, I didn't like the Iraq War. I thought it was a bad idea. History's proven me correct, proven me wrong with other things. But I never thought that George W. Bush hated the United States or detested Western Europe. I thought it was a blunder that they did because they thought it worked. I think what Trump actually was trying to do is hurt the country.
Yeah.
I really do. I understand what I just said. I think the
No, he's trying to hurt certain people in the country. See, you know, here's the problem. We have domestic enemies, and those domestic enemies are globalists. It's that simple. You're a globalist, you're not America first. If you're not America first, you're a domestic enemy, period. And that's what the Democrat Party represents, these globalists, these transnational capitalists. They want to ship your job away. They want to weaken you. They want you to be integrated in a one world government, instead of having life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and you have your own sovereignty.
He wants to hurt the United States because he likes up, like pluralism and everything else.
Okay, James, to that large portion of America who would say that what you're saying is just over the top, it's wildly exaggerated. What do you say when you say America is in peril?
Well,
in peril of what?
In peril of losing with the customs, the traditions, the Constitution,
yes.
The relationships that we've made. I mean, I'm sorry, he says
So we want to unravel 35 years of bad policy with globalization. And that's a bad thing? To Neuron Carville, that's a bad thing? Really? Let's talk about the ethos of America: God, country, and family. Do you think Democratic Party is pro-God? They're not. Do you think that they're pro-country? They're not. Do you think they're pro-family with 65 million since 1972? Around 65 million abortions since 1972? Do you think that's pro-family? I mean, think about how many deaths that not all of them, are, late term or anything like that. But the point is that an abortion is the death the killing of a fetus. You can sugarcoat it any way you want. You can say it's pro-choice or what, but it doesn't fucking matter. The reality is it's terminating a life. It's kill. That's not pro-family. You're pro-country when you have porous border and you're not following the rule of law. What about the lawlessness that's going on in New York with the illegal aliens? What about the lawlessness that's going on with these minorities within these inner cities where you have a DA that's not willing to prosecute? I think that's pro-government and pro-law? No, it's pro-chaos. The demonizing of religion by the Democratic Party, that's not pro-God. That's the ethos of America right there. Pro-God, pro-family, pro-country. What the hell is Carville talking about? Two neuron-brained Carville. I hate to see what it would be like if he only had one neuron.
Follow the Constitution. He's destroying the Western alliance as we're only looking at the Western alliance. In a country that is traditionally built alliances and have been part of, or whatever it is.
Well, let's get this straight. The taxpayers support the Western alliance. It was based on the idea that Europe would need time to rebuild through World War II and get back on its feet. Unfortunately, we had this thing called the Cold War with the Soviet Union, and we just continued on that policy for decades and decades and decades and decades. It's time for them to pay up and support their own defense, Carmel. The whole reason why there was the Marshall Plan was because it was the restructuring and the rebuilding of Europe post-World War II. But it didn't mean that it was going to go into ad infinitum. It's not like Buzz Aldrin or whatever, the Toy Story character, Buzz Lightyear, I think it was called, infinity and beyond. All right. The taxpayer money isn't infinity and beyond for NATO or for the European restructuring. There is a sunset to it. There is a point where the little kid needs to pull up his pants and actually support himself. And the European Union is strong enough to do it now. So why do we assume that the zeitgeist doesn't change, Carville? Why? Why? Because there's powerful actors that benefit from the military-industrial complex. There are powerful actors that benefit from the banking and commerce relations that have been built up in the last 35 years. But the middle-class person, we the people in the United States, we can't be prosperous when we have gutted our manufacturing, when we have a porous border, we have lawlessness. Why should we care about what's going on in Europe? When look at what's happening in New York City, or in Chicago, or in LA, or in Detroit, or in Atlanta, yada, yada, yada. Louisiana is still rebuilding from Katrina. And you want to send funds over to Ukraine? Are you fucking kidding me?
This century was not good for European nationalism. Let's just say it didn't work very well and leave it at that. Okay? We've had peace. And now, I don't think he likes that. We're talking about trade war with Canada and Mexico. The North American trade war.
He doesn't want peace.
Biden want to escalate the war in Ukraine. Trump is de-escalating the war in Ukraine. How can you say he doesn't want peace? And why should we constantly be getting the shit end of the stick when it comes to with trade? Trump wants reciprocal trade. That's equal trade. That's fair trade. Not free trade. Free trade means you can take advantage of people. But you know what? The Democratic Party has always taken advantage of people. They take advantage of the minorities. In the modern day, they take advantage of the individuals that are on the urban plantation. They have always been the party of slavery. They were conceived in the crucible of the party of slavery, and they have never stopped. And this is why they try to justify illegal aliens. Because we need to have it for our economy. We need to have these lower skilled, lower paid workers. So our economy is okay. We need slave labor. The party of slavery has never died, AKA the Democratic Party.
One of the most successful trading blocs in the world. And we're destroying that. But why would you do that? Why would you do things that are intentionally hurting the country? And I'm sorry, it's not over the top.
Let me get this straight, Carvel. Let's say someone has a tumor and you need to go in and do surgery. You got to cut them. It might be painful, so you use painkillers, but you know, you're cutting, there's some blood loss. You have to take out some tissue. You're taking out the tumor and the surrounding marginal tissue. You're causing some local damage to try to make sure you're pulling out all of the cancer. You send it for biopsy, make sure that the margins are clean. You get the okay from pathology that everything's good, and then you close the patient up. Then they're recovering and they have some pain. You give them some painkillers, right? And voila, they're slowly healing. That's an analogy of what's happening with our economy. There's going to be some pain, but in the end, the patient is going to be better off. His logic is, well, wait a minute, you're doing some damage to the marginal region around the tumor, and that's bad, and therefore don't cut. Meanwhile, the patient dies from cancer because it metastasized. So we want metastasized cancer in our economy where we can't recover and we get integrated into a new world order and the wine and cheese Democrats win and we the people lose? Or do we go through the surgery, take the pain, and on the other side be prosperous and victorious?
To surmise what might be motivating him is he just doesn't like the country. I don't think that's over the top at all.
The country we know is just so polarized. What you're saying, in a way, in a curious way, comes as no surprise. James Carville, it's been fascinating to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us. And do come and talk.
The guy's a fucking dipshit. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Maybe James Carville should go to my store and use Clarity Factor so he can get his brains working and get that brain fog out of the way and stop being a wine and cheese Democrat. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Boomer Boost. Boomer Boost is a powder. You take it every day for your breakfast or for your lunch. You'll lose weight. You'll save money because guess what? This is cheaper than your average monthly cost for breakfast or lunch. This is about 1 month's supply. You mix it with soft foods like hummus or yogurt or applesauce or a smoothie. You can mix it with filtered water if you want, or with milk. Some people mix it with milk. I mix it with hummus, a small amount of hummus. Take a full scooper a day. Do that every day, either for your breakfast or for your lunch. You will lose weight, and it targets a few systems. It targets your vascular system and your heart. So it's going to improve your health at the cardiovascular level. It's going to improve your strength and your muscles, and it's going to improve your brain health. And maybe Carville needs to take Boomer Boost because he doesn't seem to be thinking too well. So what that will do is it'll allow you to sleep better. You're going to have better mental acuity. It'll help with memory. And you will notice the benefits of this within 72 hours or less. All right. Sometimes when you take supplements, you may not start feeling the effects until about 2 weeks later or a month later. This is 72 hours when you start taking it. All right. Take it every day. Your energy levels are going to go up. Your mitochondrial health will go up. You're going to have more ATP, and your metabolism is going to go up. You're going to lose weight. This is a great way to get healthy. A big problem in the United States is that we have chronic disease because of lifestyle. You can change that through a holistic approach. Proper diet, proper exercise, learn new things, proper supplementation. You've heard me say this 1,000 times. All right? Take Boomer Boost every day and get healthy. It is in your power. You get 68 nutrients. Go to my store, take a look at the label. It's very comprehensive. Take it every day. Now, you get even added benefit if you take it with the heirloom barley or the gladiator barley. The difference between the heirloom barley and the gladiator barley is that the gladiator barley focuses on strength, but both of them, gladiator and heirloom barley, will detoxify your body, bring down inflammation, help with your immune system, and soak up free radicals through superoxide dismutase. Now, a great stack is to take Boomer Boost with the barley, either gladiator or heirloom. If you're an athlete, young or older, take Boomer Boost and gladiator barley as your pre or post workout fueling. And you'll notice that you're getting more strength gains and you're recovering quicker because it's bringing down that inflammation. I wish this was available when I was in triathlons. I would have taken it as pre or post workout fueling. All right. But it wasn't available when I was doing triathlons. So, but the thing is get the Boomer Boost and the gladiator barley and stack them together to get the most benefit, or the Boomer Boost and the heirloom barley. Do resistance training, build more muscle quicker and get healthier. All right. Now, doing the stack with the Boomer Boost and the barley, gladiator or heirloom, you're going to be able to control your A1C levels. That means that you're going to be able to control diabetes. All right. Most of the diabetes in the United States is type 2, self-induced. All right. And you can reverse it. Lose some weight, control your blood glucose levels, have a proper diet, proper exercise, proper supplementation will get you a long way. Go to my store, get the Boomer Boost and get the gladiator barley or the heirloom barley. You can buy them separately and you can take them separately, or you can get the longevity boost box and it's at a discount. I've built in a discount in the box compared to buying them separately. And you get the Boomer Boost and your choice of gladiator barley or heirloom barley. It's a great way to get healthy. And Boomer Boost and gladiator barley stacks really well with Myotrol. Why? Because Myotrol helps for gene expression to build muscle. So if you're an athlete or you're older and you want to build muscle because you've been atrophying, you want to take Boomer Boost, gladiator barley, and Myotrol. Please go to my store, use discount 5 on any order, and you get $5 off on top. Even if you buy an anti-aging box and longevity box that have built-in discounts. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and do not be a wine and cheese Democrat that only has 2 neurons in their brain. All right. Just to remind the audience, I'm going to be doing a live show tonight with John Hogue. It's planned to do tonight at 10 p.m. New York time. X Spaces will be open for call-ins, so you can ask a question live to John Hogue tonight, 10 p.m. I will be live streaming on YouTube. I might be live streaming also on Rumble. I haven't made that decision yet. So please watch, please participate.
If you want to type in questions through the chat, you can do that too. It's up to you, but it's an interactive show. We want the audience to call in and ask questions. So please participate tonight, 10 p.m. New York time. All right, that's Eastern time. We have people around the world that listen in and call and ask questions. So we have people in India and people in the United States and in Europe and, you know, in Canada and, you know, all over the place, Australia. I mean, so we want people to interact with in the show. So watch for the notification. It's going to be live streaming on YouTube. It'll also be live streaming on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and simulcast on X Spaces. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.